Chapter 2762. Daluo Territory. In the Chinese territory, numerous divine mountains rose from the ground and were coiled with vast origin energy. They emitted a myriad of divine lights, thousands of auspicious colors, and towering ancient trees stood in great numbers. It was a supreme paradise. In the depths of the Chinese, heavenly palace floated above the 9 heavens, emitting an incomparably terrifying aura. At this moment, the Chinese seemed to be a little chaotic. The life tablets of the Earth King, Huadijie, and the 4 supreme elders have all shattered. Who is it? How dare you kill our Chinese people? Damn it, no matter what, we must take revenge. A debt of blood must be paid with blood. Those who killed the Chinese, we must exterminate their families. Quickly send someone to investigate and find the murderer. Among the Chinese, figures with terrifying auras opened their eyes. Their divine thoughts intertwined like a vast heavenly might, causing terrifying lightning to appear in the void. Many Hua clansmen turned pale. Their eyes were full of shock and awe. They bowed to the figures in the sky one after another. The heavenly venerable ancestor had been cultivating in seclusion, and they were alarmed. It seemed that something big had happened to the Chinese. How dare he kill my clone? That young man's cultivation might have reached the heavenly venerable realm. We must not be reckless. Once we find out his identity, I'll kill him with the extreme Tao Emperor weapon. Above the void, an old man in a purple robe seemed to be surrounded by the sun, moon, and galaxy. He was majestic and mysterious, and his eyes were filled with monstrous killing intent. That's right. Pay close attention to the direction of the war god temple. Since the murderer knows Heavenly King Bai, he must be related to the war god temple. Once we find his whereabouts, we must kill him immediately. The Chinese cannot be humiliated. And that so-called Heavenly King Ling, Yi Liangchen, dared to kill the Chinese hero. We must not let him go. It seems that the Chinese have been silent for too long. Some people have forgotten about us and great Emperor Tiandu. These ant-like things deserve to die. The other figures also spoke with a cold expression. These were the celestial venerable ancestors of the Hua clan. They were also the true rulers of the Hua clan. They wielded great authority and stood at the pinnacle of the entire divine world. However, something had happened to the Chinese recently. In the past 100 years, the 3 lords of the Chinese clan had shone brightly and were regarded as the hope of the Chinese clan. They were even the peerless talents who could reach the emperor realm. However, a few months ago, Hua Xiong, the human king, was killed by Yi Liangchen. Now, Huadijie was also killed. It was said that he was humiliated before he died, which was an intolerable humiliation for the Hua people. It had to be washed away with the blood and lives of his enemies. Even the celestial master ancestor of the Hua clan, who had been in secluded cultivation, was alarmed by these 2 events. Following the order from the depths of the Hua clan, the entire Hua clan began to move. Many powerful figures left the Hua clan and began to search for Yi Liangchen and Ling Shao. At this moment, Ling Shao was carrying Changsheng and riding the white dragon horse towards the Taishang Palace. The Taishang Palace was located in the Taishang Sky Domain. The Taishang Heavenly Domain was also one of the 3 upper heavens of the divine realm. Not only was it vast and boundless, but it also contained an incomparably majestic and vast origin energy. In the Taishang Heavenly Domain, it could be said that spiritual veins were everywhere. Heavenly materials and earthly treasures could be seen everywhere. Every mountain that was tens of thousands of feet tall was filled with spiritual energy. It could be said that it was a paradise. The Taishang Palace was located in the extreme north. It covered an area of 1,000,000 miles. There were tens of thousands of divine mountains that rose from the ground. However, these tens of thousands of divine mountains were very strange. Half of them were covered in snow all year round and were bone-chilling. The other half was as warm as spring with hundreds of flowers blooming. This area seemed to be the intersection of extreme yang and extreme yin. However, there was a layer of Taishang Qi above the void. It was like the power produced by the convergence of yin and yang. It was extremely strange. The Taishang Palace was an extremely mysterious immortal holy land. Although there were not many disciples, each of them was amazing. Moreover, the Taishang Palace's foundation was also extremely deep. It was said that the Taishang Palace's inheritance came from a mysterious emperor in the ancient era. Not only was the Taishang Palace proficient in formations, but their attainments in swordsmanship were also beyond everyone's imagination. The Taishang Palace was also the immortal holy land with the most sword cultivators. The terror of sword cultivators made countless people's scalps tingle when they thought about it. Is this the Taishang Palace? Ling Xiao looked at the divine mountains that rose into the sky. The mysterious yin and yang qi gathered in the void. It vaguely seemed to form the mysterious scene of a black and white taiji diagram. This was the first time Ling Xiao had come to the Taishang Palace. Looking into the distance, the divine light was resplendent and the auspicious steam rose. It was as if there were many heavenly palaces and pavilions looming in the air. Ling Xiao suddenly felt a sliver of guilt. He should have come to pick up Jin Se long ago. But because of this delay, 200 years had passed. Jin Se, is he well? Jin Se had given him the most precious gift, the little princess in his arms. Daddy, is Changshen going to see Mommy soon? I'm so happy. If Mommy sees Daddy, she'll definitely be very happy too. Changshen said crisply. Her long eyelashes fluttered and her beautiful eyes were filled with anticipation and excitement. That's right. Changshen will be able to see Mommy soon. Let's bring Mommy home together, okay? Ling Xiao said with a smile. Okay. Let's go home together. Daddy, I don't like this place and I don't like those people. Changshen nodded solemnly. Changshen hasn't been doing well these past few years. The peacemakers in the Taishang Palace are full of hostility towards her. They think that Jin Se is entangled with you because of her. The white dragon horse transmitted its voice to Ling Xiao. The Taishang Palace? I'll settle this score with them today. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed coldly as he said flatly. He could hear the anxiety and nervousness in Changshen's voice. Her days in the Taishang Palace must have been unpleasant for her. She must have suffered a lot. Ling Xiao could not help but feel pain in his heart. This was his most adorable little princess, but he wasn't by Changshen's side. This filled him with guilt and made him want to make it up to Changshen. Those who had bullied Changshen in the Taishang Palace should all be annihilated. Ling Xiao, I'll ask you one more time. Do you really intend to barge in like this? The Taishang Palace has a heavenly honorable old ancestor, an ultimate emperor weapon that can suppress fate, and a flawless emperor array for protection. The white dragon horse said to Ling Xiao with a tinge of worry in its eyes. Don't worry. They can't stop me. Ling Xiao said with a faint smile. There was a peerless sharpness in his eyes. Let's go. Let's go to the Taishang Palace and bring Jin Se home. Ling Xiao's voice was calm but there was an indescribable confidence in it. The white dragon horse couldn't help but be influenced by it. Instantly, boundless pride surged in its heart. Chapter 2763. That's right. So what if it's the Taishang Dao Palace? Fuck them. I'm here today to get back at those who beat me up. I'm going to beat them up today. The white dragon horse said with an arrogant look in its eyes. Roar. The white dragon horse let out a dragon's roar. It looked up to the sky and its body emitted a dazzling light. It looked like a bright sun. A vast dragon's aura exploded. It contained the aura of an ancient king, making the white dragon horse look even more majestic. It looked incomparably majestic. It shook its four hooves and swaggered towards the Taishang Dao Palace with Ling Xiao and Changshen. Who is it? How dare you be so presumptuous in my Taishang Dao Palace? A cold voice resounded in the void. Swoosh. 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 As soon as the voice was heard, several powerful figures appeared in the void, blocking the white dragon horse's path in an instant. Devour. It was a group of experts in Taoist robes and carrying long swords. Each of them had a cold expression. Their eyes flickered with light and they exuded a cold, murderous aura. There were more than 100 sage-to-be experts. The middle-aged Taoist leading them was a sage-to-be expert. These were the mountain patrol guards of the Taishangdao Palace. When they noticed that there were uninvited guests in the Taishangdao Palace, they immediately appeared and stopped them. "It's you. By Tian Wang." When the middle-aged Taoist saw the white dragon horse, his expression changed and he sneered. "By Tian Wang, you colluded with that bitch Jin Se to create havoc in my Taishangdao Palace. Now you dare to come back. You really don't know what's good for you. Let's see who can save you this time." Clang! 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 The sound of swords being unsheathed rang out. The mountain patrol guards of the Taishangdao Palace pulled out their swords instantly. Their eyes were cold as they surrounded the white dragon horse. "Slap him." Ling Zhao's eyes flashed coldly. When he heard the middle-aged Taoist insult Jin Se, he couldn't help but be filled with killing intent. He slapped the middle-aged Taoist. Slap! A crisp sound rang out in the void. The middle-aged Taoist was sent flying by Ling Zhao's slap. He let out an incomparably miserable cry as his entire body exploded into a bloody mist in the void. Even his primordial spirit didn't manage to escape. It was completely destroyed. "What? You actually killed the commander?" The mountain patrol guards were stunned. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. And their faces were pale. They didn't expect Ling Zhao slapped the commander's head. Openly killing people in the Supreme Dao Palace, was this person really tired of living? You all, I'm king by Tian Wang. A bunch of ant-like things dare to be impudent in front of this king? Yes right. The white dragon horse sneered and said arrogantly. Bai Tian Wang is back. Although the mountain patrol guards were stunned by Ling Zhao's sudden attack, they quickly regained their senses. A few mountain patrol guards immediately shouted. Their voices were like thunder, instantly spreading throughout the entire Taishangdao Palace. They were the most loyal disciples of the Taishangdao Palace. Even in the face of Ling Zhao and the white dragon horse's threats, they weren't afraid at all. Ling Zhao's gaze was indifferent. He didn't stop them and allowed them to do as they wished. He had long sensed that the entire Taishangdao Palace was covered by an incomparably powerful divine sense. That divine sense belonged to a heavenly venerable. He and the white dragon horse had probably been discovered the moment they entered the Taishangdao Palace. Today's matter couldn't be settled peacefully. Ling Zhao really wanted to see what the Taishangdao Palace's attitude was. "White dragon horse, you still dare to come back? Very well. This time, I'd like to see how you can escape. I'll definitely make you submit willingly and become my mount." At this moment, a cold and arrogant voice sounded. A blazing light bloomed in the void. It was as if a bright sun had risen from the depths of the Taishangdao Palace. In an instant, it crossed the sky and appeared in front of the white dragon horse. It was a young man wearing golden armor. He looked extraordinarily handsome and elegant. His entire body exuded an incomparably powerful aura of the holy path. His gaze was incomparably cold, exuding a kind of lofty arrogance. At this moment, he stared at the white dragon horse without concealing it. His eyes were filled with incomparable passion. Who are you?" He also noticed Ling Zhao riding on the white dragon horse. His gaze turned cold as he asked coldly. "Sun King. You couldn't catch me a few months ago. It's the same today. I'll definitely teach you a lesson later and let you know how powerful I am." When the white dragon horse saw this young man, it sneered coldly. Speaking of which, a few months ago, the white dragon horse had suffered a lot in front of this Sun King. In the end, it almost couldn't leave the Taishangdao Palace. This fellow was vengeful and was filled with resentment towards the Sun King. At this moment, its eyes were filled with malice. It was thinking of how to teach the Sun King a lesson later. Ling Xiao, this is the Sun King, the holy son of the Taisheng Dao Palace. He and Jin Sei are known as the Taisheng Dao Palace's peerless duo. His grandfather is a celestial venerable ancestor of the Taisheng Dao Palace. He's also the leader of the peacemaking faction. This kid has always wanted to pursue Jin Sei and almost hurt Changsheng. You can't let him go. The white dragon horse transmitted its voice to Ling Xiao, introducing the Sun King's identity. The Sun King. Ling Xiao's gaze turned cold. Just the fact that the Sun King had almost hurt Changsheng was enough to sentence him to death in his heart. White dragon horse, you really don't know what's good for you. I won't argue with you. When I catch you, you'll naturally know how powerful I am. You, get off. This is my mount. Who allowed you to sit on it? The Sun King sneered. Then, his gaze landed on Ling Xiao and Changsheng. He ordered coldly in a condescending manner. Seeing Ling Xiao riding on the white dragon horse, he instinctively felt displeased. He had long regarded the white dragon horse as his exclusive property. Only he had the right to ride the white dragon horse. The white dragon horse was the mount of the celestial emperor in ancient times. Being able to ride the white dragon horse was enough to prove many things. Perhaps he really would have a chance to reach the supreme celestial realm in the future. Daddy, I'm scared. After meeting the Sun King's gaze, Changsheng couldn't help but tremble. Her little face turned pale as she hurriedly turned around and hugged Ling Xiao's neck. Changsheng, don't be afraid. With Daddy here, no one can hurt you. Daddy is invincible. I'm the most powerful person in the world. Ling Xiao gently patted Changsheng's little head. Chapter 2764. I'm not afraid, but you have to be careful, father. He's a bad guy, and he even hit mother. Changsheng nodded, but she still buried her head in Ling Xiao's arms, not daring to look up. Did you beat your mother? Very well. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, a glint in his eyes. The white dragon horse saw Ling Xiao's smile and couldn't help but tremble. This guy's smile was too cold. The white dragon horse knew that Ling Xiao was completely enraged, and couldn't help but mourn for the Sun King. The Sun King was done for after angering Ling Xiao, a slave to his wife and daughter. Father? You're Changsheng's father. Impossible. Who the hell are you? The Sun King suddenly trembled, and a trace of shock appeared in his eyes. He heard Changsheng call Ling Xiao father. However, he knew that Changsheng's father, who was also Jin Sei's husband, was the forbidden person, the chosen one from 200 years ago, Ling Xiao. Could this white-robed young man be Ling Xiao? Impossible. The Sun King immediately rejected this idea. Who am I? No one has asked me this question for many years. I'm Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao sighed softly, and his gaze fell on the Sun King, and he smiled faintly. However, there was a bone-chilling coldness in that smile. Ling Xiao. Impossible. Ling Xiao is long dead. Don't try to act mysterious here. No matter who you are, you're dead for daring to barge into the Taisheng Dao Palace. The Sun King trembled, and his eyes were filled with horror. However, he immediately sneered, and his entire body exuded a monstrous killing intent. Whoosh! 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 At the same time, the news of the white dragon horse barging into the Taisheng Dao Palace alarmed the upper echelons of the Taisheng Dao Palace. Suddenly, a few old figures appeared in the sky, and their auras were unfathomable. They were all Saint Kings, the supreme elders of the Taisheng Dao Palace. As soon as they appeared, they scattered around the void, vaguely locking onto Ling Xiao and the white dragon horse, and their eyes were extremely cold. They had also heard Ling Xiao's words. You said you're Ling Xiao. What proof do you have? A supreme elder asked cautiously. The name Ling Xiao was already a taboo in the divine world. 200 years ago, Ling Xiao had become the enemy of the entire world. The peerless battle that had erupted in the Ling Shao mountain range was still fresh in everyone's memories. Now, upon hearing this name, even the Grand Elder of the Taisheng Dao Palace revealed a grave expression despite his disbelief. I am who I am. Why would I need any evidence? I'm really curious. The Taisheng Dao Palace and the War God Hall have always been allies. Why would you betray the War God Hall and use your own disciples to curry favor with others? The so-called Supreme Dao Palace is really too disappointing. Ling Shao sneered. Even when facing the Grand Elders in front of him and the White Dragon Horse, Ling Shao did not feel the slightest bit of fear, as if he did not feel the slightest bit of fear. He was here to bring Jin Se home, and also to get an answer. I don't care who you are. You're dead for impersonating Ling Shao. As for betraying the War God Hall, the Supreme Dao Palace is a high and mighty immortal sacred land. We're only in a temporary alliance with the War God Hall. How can we betray them? We just don't want to be as stupid as the War God Hall, fighting against the entire divine world alone. The War God Hall will be removed from the divine world sooner or later. The Supreme Dao Palace is just following the trend. The Sun King sneered. Following the trend. The Supreme Dao Palace is so righteous even when betraying an ally. You've really opened my eyes. However, I can't be bothered with your trivial matters. Hand over Jin Se and I can let you off temporarily. I won't kill anyone in the Supreme Dao Palace. Otherwise, I don't know if the War God Hall will be removed, but the Supreme Dao Palace will be removed from the divine world today. Ling Shao sneered. From the attitude of the people in the Supreme Dao Palace, he could feel that the Supreme Dao Palace had changed. They were no longer as high and mighty as before, looking down on all living things and using the heart of the heavens to reflect their hearts. Now, they were no different from the other immortal holy lands. Ling Shao felt very disappointed. Was this the sect that Jin Se wanted to protect? Hand over Jin Se. Don't even think about it. Brat, you sure know how to boast shamelessly. Do you really think that you can erase the name of the Supreme Dao Palace? I think you've lost your mind. The Sun King was so angry that he laughed and his eyes were full of disdain. The Supreme Elders of the Supreme Dao Palace around him also looked cold. Terrifying auras were released from their bodies and faintly intertwined as if they were ready to strike at any time. Whether this person who called himself Ling Shao was real or fake, they would know once they captured him. No matter what, anyone who dared to provoke the Supreme Dao Palace had to die. Ling Shao, it seems like these idiots don't believe you. The White Dragon Horse said helplessly. It doesn't matter if they don't believe me. Once I kill them, it doesn't matter if they believe me or not. I didn't want to fight in the Supreme Dao Palace, but it seems like I can't avoid it today. Ling Shao smiled faintly and his expression was extremely calm. Arrogant. Kid, I'd like to see what you're made of. How dare you behave so atrociously in the Supreme Dao Palace? The Sun King's face darkened and a murderous aura surged around him, filled with cold killing intent. Rumble. Blazing divine light rose around him like an immortal sun, shrouding him in a mysterious radiance. A vast aura spread out, pressing down on Ling Shao. Peak Holy King. The Sun King's cultivation had reached the peak Holy King realm. With a flash of light in his palm, an incomparably wide golden sword appeared in an instant. Sharp sword chi burst out, overbearing and terrifying. The Sun King held the golden sword and slashed it down at Ling Shao, locking Ling Shao, Changsheng, and the White Dragon Horse. All of you, die. The Sun King roared in his heart, especially Changsheng. In his heart, he was also someone who had to die. Only with Changsheng dead would he have a chance to win over the person he yearned for day and night. Boom! Ling Shao threw out a simple punch. It was like a 9-colored divine dragon wrapped in chaotic aura had shot through the sky. It contained a violent ripple of energy, instantly colliding with the sword chi and the huge golden sword. The divine light in the sky exploded with a loud rumble. The huge golden sword trembled violently, and the runes on its surface shattered. In the end, The huge golden sword directly exploded in the void, and turned into fragments that flew in all directions. The fierce fist print didn't have the slightest resistance. Like a bolt of lightning, it blasted onto the Sun King's chest. Crack! The Sun King's body shook violently. Streaks of blood spurted out, and his entire body exploded in the void. Ah! Grandfather, save me! The Sun King screamed. In the blood mist, an extremely illusory shadow appeared. It looked exactly like the Sun King, looking at Ling Xiao with eyes full of horror and hatred. This was the Sun King's primordial spirit. He was about to teleport away, but Ling Xiao grabbed him and caught him in the palm of his hand. "You're too weak," Ling Xiao said indifferently. P.S. The third update is over. Everyone, rest early. In addition, Jinsei should have been pregnant for 200 years before giving birth to Jinsei. I made a mistake in my previous calculation and have corrected it. After all, Changsheng is the daughter of the Chosen One. Guess what Changsheng's constitution is? There will be a prize for guessing correctly. Chapter 2765. Taiyang King's physical body was shattered by Ling Xiao's punch, and his primordial spirit was caught in Ling Xiao's palm. Although he struggled with all his might, he could not escape from Ling Xiao's grasp. What? The supreme elders of the Taishang Palace were shocked, and their eyes were filled with horror. Taiyang King was a peak saint king, and even in the entire god world, he was a famous king of heaven. He was known as the hope of the Taishang Palace, and he was extremely talented and powerful. He had even defeated a supreme saint king before. However, he could not even withstand a single blow from Ling Xiao. How could this young man in white be so terrifying? Could he really be Ling Xiao? Hand over the jints, or I don't mind turning the Taishang Palace into a river of blood. Ling Xiao said flatly as he grabbed Taiyang King's primordial spirit. You're asking for it. I don't care if you're Ling Xiao, but no one can save you for being so presumptuous in the Taishang Palace. Go, kill him. A cold glint flashed across the eyes of the surrounding supreme elders as they pounced on Ling Xiao. Rumble. They exuded a terrifying Saint Path aura, and vaguely, they seemed to be able to mobilize the power of the yin-yang tai chi diagram above their heads, causing their aura to skyrocket. Beams of terrifying divine light fell from the sky, and they were about to drown Ling Xiao. Looks like you're still not giving up, Ling Xiao said with a cold laugh. Rumble. In an instant, purple lightning seemed to explode around his body. Streaks of chaotic light rose, and immortal and mysterious fluctuations spread out. It was like a vast heavenly might, gushing out in all directions. The streaks of terrifying divine light were instantly annihilated. They couldn't even touch Ling Xiao within 3 meters of him, nor could they cause any harm to him. Rumble. Ling Xiao punched out. The simple punch contained the power of his immortal body. It was as if a bolt of lightning had exploded in the void. The supreme elder in front of him was shocked. He felt that Ling Xiao's punch was extremely terrifying, and he did not dare to take it head-on. He immediately moved back. Bang! The ferocious fist instantly pierced through the void. It was as if an immemorial divine mountain was pressing down. Its speed was so fast that the supreme elder couldn't dodge at all. His entire body shook violently. Then, his body exploded with a loud bang. A divine chain of order shot out from behind Ling Xiao. It intertwined with the power of laws and directly trapped the great elder's soul in the mist of blood. Since you don't want to hand over the Jinsei, I'll kill you until you do. Ling Xiao's gaze was incomparably cold. He took a step forward, and the void rumbled. Vast laws of the Great Path surged. Ling Xiao seemed to have become the embodiment of the laws of the Great Path. Every step he took contained destructive power, causing the surrounding space to tremble violently. In the void, an illusory shadow rapidly approached Ling Xiao's back. The black rapier was extremely sharp, wanting to directly pierce through Ling Xiao's head. It was a supreme elder hiding in the void, waiting for an opportunity to launch a sure-kill attack. However, Ling Xiao didn't even look at him. Instead, he pointed a finger in the air. Crack! The void shattered. In the endless turbulence of the void, Ling Xiao pierced through the forehead of a black-robed elder. His body instantly exploded into a mist of blood. A divine sequence chain swept out, imprisoning his primordial spirit as well. Boom! In an instant, two beams of black and white divine light shot out from Ling Xiao's eyes. They intertwined with the qi of yin and yang, turning into two extremely sharp sword qi. They contained the power of the great path of yin and yang. They directly pierced through the elder who was charging towards him, completely shattering his body. The two souls wanted to escape, but they were also imprisoned by the divine chain of order behind Ling Xiao. Boom! 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 Ling Xiao stepped into the void. He held Changsheng in one hand and constantly punched out with his other hand. Every step he took caused the surrounding space to tremble at the same time. The vast power condensed on him became more and more terrifying. It was like the might of the heavens, causing everyone to tremble all over. Their faces paled, and their eyes were filled with disbelief. Ling Xiao killed one person with each step he took. Those extremely powerful elders were like paper in front of him. Their physical bodies were destroyed and their primordial spirits were imprisoned. Before long, Ling Xiao had killed 8 supreme elders of the Taishang Dao Palace. He completely destroyed their bodies, leaving only their souls imprisoned. Behind Ling Xiao, 9 divine chains of order danced in the air, imprisoning 9 resplendent balls of light. Vaguely, 9 souls were struggling with all their might, cursing something. Including the Taiyang King and the 8 supreme elders of the Taishang Dao Palace, Ling Xiao destroyed their bodies and imprisoned their souls. This scene was extremely shocking. Many disciples of the Taishang Dao Palace were scared out of their wits. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. That was the Taiyang King and the 8 supreme elders of the Taishang Dao Palace. In their hearts, they represented invincible existences. But now, they were so weak. Not only were their bodies destroyed, but even their souls were in danger. Everyone looked up at Ling Xiao in the sky with awe and respect. This. Could it be that Ling Xiao, the chosen one who fought in the Ling Xiao mountain range 200 years ago? Someone said with a trembling voice. His entire body was shaking. The disciples of the Taishang Dao Palace had always been proud. They were extremely talented, and most of them were sword cultivators. They were said to be invincible among their peers. They cultivated the Taishang Dao scripture, and their state of mind was the closest to Tian Xian. Therefore, although they had fewer people than the other immortal sacred grounds, they were not weak at all. They all thought that they were the chosen ones, the hope of the human race in the realm of the gods. However, when they saw the white-robed figure in the sky, they couldn't help but feel a sense of inferiority. Something big is going to happen. Ling Xiao, the chosen one, is not dead, and has returned to the realm of the gods. This must be something that will shock the entire realm of the gods. The realm of the gods is going to change. I heard that Saintess Jean Sei's husband is Ling Xiao. The sect treated Saintess Jean Sei like this, and even wanted to use her to appease the other immortal sacred grounds. I'm afraid they are going to offend Ling Xiao. What are you afraid of? Our Taishang Dao Palace has an extreme emperor weapon, the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram, and a flawless emperor array, the Yin-Yang Great Array. Even if Ling Xiao is the chosen one, he won't be able to do anything. Just wait and see, the sect is going to be furious. When the heavenly honorable old ancestor arrives, he will definitely use the extreme emperor weapon to activate the flawless emperor array and kill this person. In the Taishang Palace, many disciples were discussing. Some were shocked by Ling Xiao's name, but some didn't think so. They thought that Ling Xiao was courting death by causing trouble in the Taishang Palace. He would die sooner or later. The Third Sect Master. Chapter 2766. Rumble. At that moment, the sky above the Taishang Dao Palace was filled with wind and clouds. Lightning flashed and a blazing light lit up the entire area. Tens of thousands of sacred mountains began to tremble violently. Mysterious and vast yin and yang qi rose, causing the shadow of the yin-yang taiji diagram in the void to become more and more solid. It also began to rotate slowly. A vast emperor's aura filled the air, containing an aura that could destroy everything. It locked onto Ling Xiao. The Taisheng Dao Palace's yin-yang grand array. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed sharply as he looked at the black and white taiji diagram in the sky. The Taisheng Dao Palace's grand array was the flawless emperor array, the yin-yang grand array. It was said that it was passed down by the Taisheng emperor in the ancient times. After being strengthened by the ancestral masters of the Taisheng Dao Palace, it had become more perfect. Once the yin-yang grand array was fully activated, the emperor aura it contained could kill an emperor. Ling Xiao also felt a strong sense of threat. Crack! The black and white taiji diagram in the sky covered the sky. In an instant, blazing lightning flashed and a black light shot out from the black and white taiji diagram towards Ling Xiao. The lunar divine light was indestructible. Ling Xiao felt the threat of the lunar divine light. In an instant, a bright light flashed between his brows. The heavenly majestic monument soared into the sky like a huge mountain and blocked above Ling Xiao's head. Boom! The lunar divine light hit the heavenly majestic monument and a blazing light bloomed. The heavenly majestic monument shook violently, but it did not budge in the end. Although the yin-yang great formation was extremely powerful, Ling Xiao possessed an extreme Dao monarch weapon and had comprehended the yin-yang secret technique. Furthermore, Jin Sei had even imparted the supreme Dao scripture to him. Hence, the yin-yang great formation did not pose much threat to Ling Xiao. How dare you behave so atrociously in the Taisheng Dao Palace? Do you really think that there is no one in the Taisheng Dao Palace? An old and majestic voice rang out in the sky. Rumble. The void trembled and divine light rose. In an instant, two dazzling beams of light shot up into the sky, enveloping two incomparably powerful figures. It was as if they could split open the world. In an instant, they appeared before everyone. They were two old men with white hair and beards. One wore a black robe while the other wore a white robe. Their faces were dignified and cold, and their bodies emitted an unfathomable aura that was vast like the sea. There seemed to be the qi of yin and yang converging around them, while the laws of the Grand Tao interweaved together and revealed various mysterious phenomena, causing them to seem even more dignified and noble. These were two great Empyrean powerhouses. Ling Xiao, these two old things are the leaders of the Supreme Tao Palace's peace faction, Heavenly Venerate Nine Sons and Heavenly Venerate Nine Sons. Heavenly Venerate Nine Sons is the Sun Monarch's grandfather. The white dragon horse transmitted its voice to Ling Xiao and introduced the two old men. Protect Chongsheng. Leave the two of them to me. Ling Xiao said calmly before placing longevity on the back of the white dragon horse. Father, be careful. Although there was a trace of worry in Chongsheng's eyes, she still replied obediently. Be good, Chongsheng. Father will be fine. Watch father beat these two bad guys to death and save mother, okay? Ling Xiao smiled and patted Chongsheng's little head. Okay. Chongsheng nodded. So it's you two old things who betrayed the Supreme Tao Palace and tried to curry favor with the other immortal sacred grounds while Tao Lord Extermination wasn't around? Ling Xiao turned around and looked at Heavenly Venerate Nine Sons and Heavenly Venerate Nine Sons. He could feel that Heavenly Venerate Nine Sons and Heavenly Venerate Nine Sons were very strong. Their auras were unfathomable. They cultivated the Grand Tao of Taiyang and Grand Tao of Taiyin. Moreover, both Grand Taos had been cultivated to perfection. The next step would be to touch the Grand Tao's origin and break through to the Imperial Emperor realm. Grandfather, save me. The Sun Monarch's primordial spirit began to shout as soon as he saw Heavenly Venerate Nine Sons. His eyes were filled with excitement. Although his physical body had been destroyed by Ling Xiao, his primordial spirit was still there. Especially since his primordial spirit had condensed the Holy Path tree. If he wanted to reform his physical body, he would just have to use a little more origin energy. The other 8 supreme elders were the same. When they saw the 2 heavenly venerates, they cried for help at the same time. I don't care who you are. Let them go and kneel down to beg for forgiveness. Perhaps I can spare your life. Otherwise, I'll make sure you die a horrible death. Heavenly Venerate Ninasun's eyes were dark and filled with anger and killing intent as he stared at Ling Xiao. Kid, this is the Supreme Tao Palace. Don't think that you can do whatever you want here just because you have an Extreme Tao Emperor weapon. If we activate the Supreme Emperor formation with all our might, you'll definitely die even if you have an Extreme Tao Emperor weapon. Heavenly Venerate Ninesun sneered. Although the 2 of them looked indifferent on the surface, they were extremely shocked in their hearts. Especially Ling Xiao's identity, it set off a storm in their hearts. Not only did Ling Xiao not die, but he had also returned to the divine world. 200 years ago, in the battle at Ling Xiao mountain range, the entire divine world had lost many saints, great saints, and even saint kings. That shocking battle had also caused Ling Xiao's name to shake the entire divine world. They deeply felt the terror of the heaven's chosen child. If he was allowed to grow, wouldn't he really be able to become the 10th emperor of the human race? Ling Xiao had returned, but his strength was even more unfathomable. The Helios King was a peak saint king, and the other 8 supreme elders were ordinary saint kings and peak saint kings. They were extremely powerful, but now, they had been destroyed by Ling Xiao in such a short time. Even their physical bodies had been destroyed, and their primordial spirits had been imprisoned. The 9 divine chains of order behind Ling Xiao imprisoned 9 resplendent balls of light. It was so eye-catching that it was like a slap to the Supreme Tao Palace's face, causing them to be shocked and angry. If you want me to let them go, it's very simple. Hand over the jints. As long as you hand over the jints, I'll let them go. Ling Xiao said indifferently. He was so powerful that even the 5 great saint kings of the Chinese were killed by him with a slap, let alone the Helios King and the supreme elders of the Supreme Tao Palace. Ling Xiao had only destroyed their physical bodies because he wanted to use them to exchange for the jints. Now that the jints was imprisoned by them, Ling Xiao was worried about her safety, so he could only use this method to protect her. Don't even think about it. There's no room for you to bargain here. The jints is a traitor of the Supreme Tao Palace, and no one can save her. If you don't let them go, don't blame us for activating the Emperor formation and killing you. Heavenly Venerate Ninasun's eyes turned cold as he sneered. His attitude was extremely unyielding. The Third Sect Master. Chapter 2767. Looks like you don't care about their lives. Since that's the case, let's kill them all. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Boom! The devouring fire rose from the divine order chain behind him. It contained a terrifying destructive power and enveloped the primordial spirit of one of the great elders, burning him into nothingness in an instant. Ling Xiao, how dare you! Ninesun Heavenly Master was furious. Murderous intent flashed in his eyes as if he was about to attack Ling Xiao. Now you know who I am. Since you know I'm Ling Xiao, how dare you imprison Jinsei? You really don't know what's good for you. Either you hand over the Jinsei now, or you can watch them all die in front of you. Ling Xiao sneered. Boom! He didn't stop there. Another devouring fire rose from the divine order chain and enveloped the primordial spirit of another great elder, burning him to ashes. Grandfather, save me. I don't want to die. Elder Ninesun, save me, Elder Ninesun, please save us. The Taiyang King and the remaining 6 great elders' primordial spirits screamed in fear. Their eyes were filled with terror. They didn't expect Ling Xiao to be so ruthless. He attacked directly and killed the primordial spirits of 2 great elders in succession. Those were 2 saint kings, and their souls had been dispersed just like that. Ninesun Heavenly Master and Ninesun Heavenly Master's eyes were cold. They were filled with rage and murderous intent, but they didn't dare attack Ling Xiao for fear of angering him. They were the rulers of the Taisheng Dao Palace. Ever since the Dao Lord extermination had left the Taisheng Dao Palace, they had absolute authority. No one dared to defy them. Now, Ling Xiao was threatening them with the lives of the Taiyang king and the great elders. This made them extremely angry and enraged. It seems like you really want them to die. I didn't expect you to not care about your own grandson's life as a grandfather. Ling Xiao sneered. Sky-devouring fire appeared on the 7 chains behind him at the same time, as if it was about to devour the souls of the Sun King and all the great elders in a single instance. Stop! Heavenly Venerate 9 Sun's expression changed as he hurriedly shouted. How is it? Do you agree to give me the Jinsei now? Ling Xiao said indifferently. Ling Xiao, you win. Fine, I'll give you Jinsei, but you have to let them all go, or Jinsei will die. 9 Sun's heavenly sovereign gritted his teeth. He hated Ling Xiao to the extreme, but there was nothing he could do now. He could only let Ling Xiao threaten him. He had no choice. His grandson, the Sun King, was in Ling Xiao's hands. He couldn't just watch the Sun King die in Ling Xiao's hands. Don't worry, these pieces of trash are useless to me. I only want the Jins. Ling Xiao said indifferently. Good. I'll bring it to you right away. Lord Nine Sun took a deep look at Ling Xiao, then gave Lord Nine Sun a cryptic look before turning around and flying into the depths of the Taishang Palace. In the depths of the Supreme Tao Palace, there was a dungeon that was made of divine gold and covered in a powerful array. Outside the dungeon, there were 2 Saint King Realm Supreme Elders guarding it. Jinsei sat cross-legged in the dungeon. She wore a red dress and her skin was as white as jade. Her peerless face was filled with indifference, but her face looked a little pale. Her cultivation had been sealed and she had been imprisoned in the dungeon for a few months. A few months ago, the peace faction of the Supreme Tao Palace had the upper hand. Not only did they threaten the lives of the supreme elders of the war faction, but they also threatened Jinsei with Changsheng's life. In the end, Jinsei had no choice but to hand over the yin-yang tai chi diagram. Her cultivation was sealed and she was imprisoned here. Brother Ling Xiao, where are you? Jinsei murmured to herself, her eyes filled with longing. Since 200 years ago, Ling Xiao had fought against the Sky Hell Beast alone in the Heaven Prison world and parted with Jinsei. Jinsei had returned to the God world, but she had been missing Ling Xiao all the time. She didn't expect that 200 years would pass in the blink of an eye, and she had completely lost track of Ling Xiao. Her heart was filled with worry and longing. Brother Ling Xiao, do you know? We have a cute daughter, she's called Changsheng. She's very obedient, but I didn't take good care of her. How nice would it be if you were here? Jinsei sighed softly in her heart. She was originally filled with deep feelings for the Supreme Tao Palace, and she was extremely respectful to her master, Annihilation Tao Lord. She saw him as a parent. However, ever since Annihilation Tao Lord left the Supreme Tao Palace a few years ago, the Supreme Tao Palace had begun to have internal strife, and it was getting more and more serious. Did Heavenly Sovereign 9 Yang and Heavenly Sovereign 9 Yin think that by handing over Jinsei, they would be able to appease the anger of the immortal sacred grounds? They were too naive. The immortal sacred grounds had never targeted the Supreme Tao Palace because of Ling Xiao, but because they had always wanted to destroy the Supreme Tao Palace and War God Hall. Even if Jinsei was handed over, the result wouldn't change. The great calamity of the epoch was coming, and the immortal sacred grounds all had their own plans. There were too many immortal sacred grounds in the God world, and if they could destroy 1 or 2 immortal sacred grounds, they might be able to obtain more resources and increase their strength greatly. It wasn't that Jinsei didn't want to leave, but for Changsheng's safety, she had no choice but to surrender. I hope the White Dragon Horse can bring Changsheng back to War God Hall safely. If Brother Ling Xiao returns to the God world, he will be very happy to see Changsheng. Jinsei's lips curled into a smile. Her smile was blissful and sweet, revealing a soul-stirring beauty. However, coupled with her pale face, it made one's heart ache. At that moment, Heavenly Sovereign 9 Yang arrived at the dungeon. As Heavenly Sovereign 9 Yang waved his hand, the 2 Grand Supreme Elders guarding Jinsei bowed to Heavenly Sovereign 9 Yang and turned to leave. Elder Nine Yang, are you prepared to hand me over? Jin Se lifted her head and looked at Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yang. Jin Se, you should understand that I'm not handing you over for my own selfish reasons, but for the safety of the Supreme Tao Palace. The Supreme Tao Palace can no longer afford to suffer such great losses. Handing you over is a last resort. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yang said indifferently. What a last resort? Using Changxing to threaten me? Is that a last resort? Now that I have handed the Yin Yang Taijitu to you, you have the entire Supreme Tao Palace under your control. What else do you want from me? I'm afraid I'll disappoint you. Jin Se sneered coldly. Don't worry. I won't do anything to you. You have a good husband, and I'll hand you over to Ling Xiao. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yang said slowly. Brother Ling Xiao. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yang's words made Jin Se's body tremble. Instantly, her eyes were filled with joy. Had the person whom she yearned for day and night really returned? Jin Se's body trembled slightly, and a dazzling smile bloomed on her face. Chapter 2768. Jin Se had never imagined that she would hear about Ling Xiao from Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun. 200 years was an extremely long time for Jin Se. She even felt like she had waited for Ling Xiao in the God of War planet for tens of thousands of years. That unforgettable longing had long been imprinted in her soul, and it was also the hope that had supported her. Now, Ling Xiao had finally returned. Come with me. Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun said indifferently. With a wave of his hand, the huge prison slowly opened. Jin Se's cultivation was still sealed, and Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun had no intention of unsealing her. Whoosh! Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun rolled up his sleeves and instantly disappeared from the prison with Jin Se. In the sky above the Taishang Palace, Ling Xiao carried longevity in his arms. Behind him, the divine chains of order imprisoned 7 powerful primordial spirits. There were many cultivators from the Taishang Palace around him. With Lord Nine Yin in the lead, they surrounded Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao's expression was indifferent, as if he didn't care about them at all. Daddy, will Changxing be able to see Mommy soon? Changxing blinked her adorable eyes and asked expectantly. That's right. Mommy will be coming to see us soon. Daddy misses your mommy very much too. Ling Xiao smiled faintly. Ling Xiao doted on his daughter, Changxing, and placed all his attention on her. However, Ling Xiao could vaguely sense that Changxing's immortal skin and jade-like bones didn't look like a mortal body, but there was a powerful seal in her body. It seemed to have sealed the power of Changxing's bloodline. Ling Xiao could sense Jin Se's aura from that seal. It was Jin Se who had sealed Changxing's bloodline. Ling Xiao was very curious. Why would Jin Se leave such a seal? Was there something special about Changxing's bloodline? Daddy, Mommy misses you very much too. I've seen Mommy crying silently while looking at your portraits several times. Changxing looked at Ling Xiao and said seriously. Ling Xiao's heart trembled, and boundless guilt welled up in him. For a moment, he couldn't look straight into Changxing's clear eyes. It's all Daddy's fault. Daddy will never leave you again. Ling Xiao took a deep breath and said solemnly. Then let's pinky swear. Changxing extended her little finger and looked at Ling Xiao expectantly. All right, let's pinky swear. Ling Xiao said with a smile. He then extended his pinky to hold Changxing's pinky. The big hand held the small hand. This was the warmest promise between father and daughter. Pinky swear. Don't change your mind for 100 years. Yes, not even in 10,000 years. Ha! Changxing said seriously. She tilted her head and looked very cute. After she finished speaking, she seemed to be amused by herself. She giggled and her face was full of an innocent smile. Ling Xiao stroked Changxing's little head, his heart filled with endless tenderness and love. Mother! Suddenly, Longevity shouted. His eyes lit up and his voice was filled with excitement. Ling Xiao froze, then slowly turned his head around. In the void in the distance, a woman in a red dress stood. Her black hair was like a waterfall, flying with the wind. Her clothes fluttered and her figure was agile, like a fairy from the 9 heavens. She had a flawless face, revealing a soul-stirring beauty. Anyone who saw her could not help but sigh in admiration. Why did the Creator love this woman so much? All the beautiful words were not enough to describe her. This face had appeared in Ling Xiao's mind countless times, making him yearn for it day and night. Every time he thought of it, it gave him endless hope even when he was in a desperate situation. This was the person he loved the most. Jin Sei. Jin Sei. Ling Xiao's body trembled. He opened his mouth as if he had thousands of words to say, but he did not know where to start. In the end, he only said 2 words and said softly. Jin Sei's face was a little pale, but at this moment, her shoulders were trembling. Her eyes were filled with inexplicable surprise. She just stared at Ling Xiao in a daze. It was as if everything in the world had disappeared. Her eyes only saw Ling Xiao carrying Changsheng. It was so beautiful, so unreal. 2 streams of tears fell silently from Jin Sei's eyes, blurring her vision. Jin Sei's lips curled into an incomparably radiant smile. Her voice trembled slightly as she said slowly, "Brother Ling Xiao, you're finally back." Jin Sei, "I'm back. I'm here to bring you home. From now on, our family will never be separated again." Ling Xiao nodded heavily. His eyes were also a little hot and red. In the end, a teardrop fell from the corner of his eye, as dazzling as a pearl. "Father, don't cry. Changsheng doesn't want you to cry." Changsheng stretched out her soft hand and gently wiped away the tear at the corner of Ling Xiao's eye. "Changsheng, father is not crying. The wind is too strong, and it's blinding my eyes." Ling Xiao smiled slightly. He quickly circulated his cultivation to evaporate the tears in his eyes. His eyes were bright and radiant, filled with happiness and happiness. These 2 fellows, why are they so worrisome? Isn't it just 200 years? Why do they have to be so emotional? I'm also blinded by the wind. The white dragon horse muttered softly. Its eyes were slightly moist as it grinned, revealing a mouthful of white teeth. TSK, what a touching scene of a husband and wife meeting. Ling Xiao, I've brought Jin Sei here. Can you let them go now? At that moment, a piercing voice broke this heartwarming scene. Heavenly Venerate 9's son looked at Ling Xiao indifferently. There was no change in his expression at all. Ling Xiao frowned and glanced at Heavenly Venerate 9's Sunday. "I can let them go, but you have to undo the seal in Jin Sei's body first." Ling Xiao could see that Jin Sei's cultivation had been sealed by Heavenly Venerate 9's son. "No problem." Heavenly Venerate 9's son replied indifferently. He agreed very quickly and directly slapped the air. A blazing light rose, and mysterious runes appeared around Jin Sei's body. Then, they quickly shattered. The power that sealed Jin Sei's cultivation gradually disappeared. A powerful aura emanated from Jin Sei's body, causing the surrounding void to tremble. Jin Sei's cultivation had also reached the level of a holy king. However, there was still a trace of the seal on Jin Sei's body that hadn't completely shattered. It was obvious that Heavenly Venerate 9's son still had a trick up his sleeve. "How about we exchange at the same time?" Heavenly Venerate 9's son glanced at Ling Xiao and said indifferently. "All right." Ling Xiao nodded and said. The 7 divine chains behind Ling Xiao enveloped the 7 powerful primordial spirits as they slowly flew toward Heavenly Venerate 9's Sunday. Heavenly Venerate 9's son also let Jin Sei walk toward Ling Xiao. Chapter 2769. Kacha. When the 7 primordial spirits clashed with Jin Sei, Ling Xiao released the seal on the 7 primordial spirits. 9 Sun's heavenly sovereign also released the last seal on Jin Sei's body. Whoosh! 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 The 7 primordial spirits shot towards 9 Sun's heavenly sovereign like lightning. At the same time, Jin Sei also flew towards Ling Xiao. Boom! At that moment, Nine Suns' heavenly sovereign's eyes flashed with cold killing intent. As a golden rune in his palm shattered, Jin Sei's body shook violently. She coughed out a mouthful of blood and her aura instantly weakened. A black mist spread out from Jin Sei's body. It contained a cold and terrifying aura. It was as if some powerful creature was growing rapidly in Jin Sei's body. It began to devour Jin Sei's life force. Jin Sei's aura was weakening at a speed visible to the naked eye. Nine Suns' heavenly sovereign, how dare you? Ling Xiao's body shook. His eyes were filled with towering rage as he punched towards Nine Suns' heavenly sovereign. Although he had been very careful, he had not expected Nine Suns' heavenly sovereign to be so vicious. He did not know what kind of terrifying trump card he had left in Jin Sei's body. It was about to completely devour Jin Sei's life force. Rumble. Ling Xiao's punch was extremely ferocious. It contained a destructive aura. Vast blood energy rose, causing the surrounding void to tremble violently. The void in the sky shattered with a loud bang as endless chaotic currents surged. This punch caused Nine Suns' heavenly sovereign's expression to change involuntarily. Ha ha ha. Ling Xiao, not only will Jin Sei die today, but you will also die. Nine Suns' heavenly sovereign laughed loudly. His eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Boom! He did not dare to take Ling Xiao's punch head-on. In an instant, he spat out a dazzling light from his mouth. In an instant, it turned into a yin-yang taiji diagram in the void. It spun and contained a vast emperor's aura as it charged towards Ling Xiao. This was the Supreme Tao Palace's emperor weapon, the yin-yang taiji diagram. Kacha! Space trembled as blazing divine light erupted. Ling Xiao's peerlessly ferocious punch collided with the yin-yang tai chi diagram, instantly erupting with a destructive shockwave. The yin-yang taijutsu was actually sent flying by Ling Xiao's punch. However, a terrifying emperor's aura erupted, and Ling Xiao was forced back by the yin-yang tai chi diagram. Jince, are you alright? Ling Xiao couldn't be bothered to continue suppressing heavenly venerate Nine Suns. Instead, he hugged Jin Sei in his arms, his eyes filled with worry. Yin and yang energy flashed in his eyes, and he instantly saw through Jin Sei's body. He saw a black goo worm inside Jin Sei's body, emitting a ferocious aura. It lay dormant in Jin Sei's heart, devouring her life force. Mother, what's wrong? Wake up quickly, father, quickly save mother. Changshen was also frightened by Jin Sei's current appearance. His face was pale as he shook Jin Sei while looking at Ling Xiao with pleading eyes. Ling Xiao, don't even think about saving Jin Sei. I have already planted the life-exterminating goo worm in her body. The life-exterminating goo worm is a primordial variant that can devour blood and life force. Once it enters the body, even a heavenly venerate will die without a doubt. Only I can control the life-exterminating goo worm. Heavenly venerate Nine Suns sneered, his eyes filled with indifference. Rumble. The Taiyang monarch and the 6 grand elders' primordial spirits shone brightly in the void. In an instant, vast amounts of origin energy gathered and reformed their bodies. The Taiyang monarch's eyes were filled with incomparable hatred and murderous intent. Grandfather, kill them. Kill them all. The Taiyang monarch hated Ling Xiao to the extreme. He was the pride of Taisheng Dao Palace, but he was trampled into the mud by Ling Xiao, losing all his dignity. He felt that it was a great humiliation. Only by killing Ling Xiao could he wash away this humiliation. How can you take back the life-exterminating goo worm and spare Jin Sei? Ling Xiao's expression was extremely ugly as he stared at heavenly venerate Nine Suns. Very simple. Ling Xiao, you are the chosen one with the heavenly Tao providence. I am very interested in your heavenly Tao providence. Give up all resistance and let me kill you personally. Then, I will spare Jin Sei's life. How about that? Heavenly venerate Nine Suns smiled faintly as a trace of passion flashed in his eyes. Heavenly Tao providence. Ever since Ling Xiao appeared, he had been eyeing Ling Xiao's heavenly Tao providence. If he could refine Ling Xiao's heavenly Tao providence, he would definitely be able to take another step forward and break through to the Imperial Emperor realm. That was an irresistible temptation to him. Even if I die in your hands, how can you guarantee that you will let Jinsei go? Ling Xiao said coldly. Ling Xiao, you can't. This is their scheme. Don't fall for it. Let's kill our way out now. There will be a way to cure Jinsei. The white dragon horse's expression changed drastically as he hurriedly said to Ling Xiao. He was really afraid that Ling Xiao would be impulsive and agree to heavenly venerate Ninasun's request. Then, they would really be at the mercy of others. Ling Xiao, the life-exterminating parasitic worm in Jinsei's body is devouring her life force. In 2 hours, her life force will be completely devoured. Then, even the unparalleled emperor won't be able to save her. She has deep feelings for you. Are you not willing to sacrifice for her just once? Don't worry, I can swear a heavenly Tao oath and a great mental demon oath. As long as you die in my hands, I will definitely save Jinsei. Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun smiled faintly, looking as if everything was under his control. Heavenly Venerate Nine Suns, I hope you will keep your word. Ling Xiao stared at Heavenly Venerate Nine Suns as he spoke. A trace of determination appeared in his eyes. I swear in the name of the Heavenly Tao that as long as Ling Xiao agrees to give up all resistance and dies in my hands, I will spare Jinsei's life and send them out of the Supreme Tao Palace safely. Heavenly Venerate Nine Suns made a prompt decision and swore a Heavenly Tao oath and a great mental demon oath. These 2 oaths were incomparably terrifying. The higher one's cultivation level, the greater the restrictions they would be subjected to. If one disobeyed the oath, it would result in chi deviation and the loss of one's cultivation level. In the worst-case scenario, one's soul would be scattered, never to be reincarnated. Heavenly Venerate Nine Suns wanted to gain Ling Xiao's trust, so he swore an oath without hesitation. White Dragon Horse, take good care of Changsheng. Good brother. If fate allows it in the next life, we will still be good brothers. Ling Xiao patted the white dragon horse and placed longevity on the white dragon horse's back. His eyes were filled with longing. Ling Xiao, don't. The white dragon horse was extremely anxious and wanted to stop Ling Xiao. Chapter 2770. Don't die, father. I don't want you to die. They're all bad people. You're the most powerful person in the world. You'll definitely be able to chase them away and save mother, right? Changsheng was also trembling. Her eyes were filled with fear as she hugged Ling Xiao's neck tightly. She did not want Ling Xiao to die. Be good, Changsheng. Have a good sleep. When you wake up, father and mother will definitely be by your side. Ling Xiao patted Changsheng's head gently. His palm was filled with saint power, causing Changsheng to fall into a deep sleep. Then, he passed her to the white dragon horse. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Suns, come and kill me. Ling Xiao turned around and walked resolutely toward Heavenly Sovereign Nine Suns. His back view looked extremely determined and tragic. His eyes were filled with despair and anger. He was like a lone wolf who had fallen into a desperate situation. All he could do was silently wait for death. Lord Nine Sun, Taiyang King, and many other cultivators from the Taisheng Palace looked at Ling Xiao coldly. In their eyes, Ling Xiao was already a dead man. Of course, they admired Ling Xiao for his loyalty and loyalty. However, wasn't this also Ling Xiao's weakness? It was precisely because Ling Xiao valued Jinsei's life more than his own that they could use this to lure Ling Xiao into a trap. Ling Xiao walked step by step toward Heavenly Sovereign Nine Suns. His entire body exuded an extremely tragic and desperate aura. Ling Xiao, I really admire you. As the chosen one, you were able to survive that kind of desperate situation 200 years ago. This shows that you really have great luck on your body. If you don't die, you might really become the 10th emperor of the human race. However, you're going to die today. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Suns sighed softly. Despicable. Ling Xiao laughed coldly. You're right. I am despicable. If I hadn't seen the relationship between you and Jean Sei with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed that you would die for her. I was also gambling, but I still won. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Suns smiled faintly. Cut the crap. If you want to do it quickly. I hope you can keep your promise. Ling Xiao said coldly. Then, he slowly closed his eyes as if he was going to die. Don't worry. As long as I kill you, I will spare Jin's life. Now, I will use the yin-yang Tai Chi diagram to destroy your primordial spirit. I hope you don't resist. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that I won't activate the extermination goo worm and kill Jean Sei. The Nine Suns Heavenly Sovereign smiled. Wang. The yin-yang taiji diagram floated above his head, emitting a dazzling light. Black and white yin-yang qi flowed, and a vast emperor's aura filled the air, making the yin-yang taiji diagram look even more mysterious, as if it contained endless mysteries of heaven and earth. As Heavenly Venerate Nine Suns waved his hand, the yin-yang taijutsu immediately descended towards Ling Xiao's head. Rumble. The black and white yin-yang divine light contained an aura that could destroy everything. In an instant, it was about to shoot into Ling Xiao's forehead. This was the power of an extreme emperor. The yin-yang divine light was like an ancient yin-yang millstone, capable of obliterating all life. Heavenly Venerate Jiuyang was obviously very greedy. Although he wanted to kill Ling Xiao, he also coveted Ling Xiao's immortal treasured body. He only wanted to obliterate Ling Xiao's primordial spirit and leave behind his physical body. Perhaps he could use Ling Xiao's physical body to refine a second clone. This bastard is really lucky. Otherwise, if he had fallen into my hands, I would have made him beg for death. The Sun Monarch's eyes were filled with gloomy killing intent as he said coldly. His hatred for Ling Xiao wasn't just because Ling Xiao had beaten him to the ground and destroyed his dignity. More importantly, he saw the deep affection between Ling Xiao and Jean Sei. They were even willing to die for each other, which made him go crazy with jealousy. One had to know that he had pursued Jean Sei for a long time, but Jean Sei had always been as cold as ice and kept a distance from him. When had she ever revealed such a gentle and happy expression? Since he couldn't have her, he would destroy her completely. The Sun Monarch had already decided that after Ling Xiao died at the hands of his grandfather, he wouldn't let Jean Sei and Changxing off. Once this pair of mother and daughter fell into his hands, he would definitely make them suffer. Rumble. Just as the taiji diagram landed on Ling Xiao's head, Ling Xiao suddenly opened his eyes. His eyes were filled with cold and monstrous killing intent. There was no trace of despair left. He reached out and grabbed the taiji diagram. At the same time, a dazzling light bloomed between his eyebrows. The heavenly aura was like a prison monument that swept across the sky and shattered the two rays of yin-yang divine light. Then, it expanded in the void and turned into a terrifying giant monument that suppressed the taiji diagram. Ling Xiao, you're courting death. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Sun was shocked at first. Then, he flew into a rage, his eyes filled with monstrous killing intent. He had never thought that Ling Xiao would dare to resist. Did Ling Xiao really not care about Jean Sei's life? How dare he resist? Rumble. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Sun's terrifying saint aura surged. He activated the taiji diagram to escape the suppression of the heavenly aura. At the same time, he activated the life-exterminating parasitic worm to devour Jean Sei completely. Since you don't care about Jean Sei's life, then let her die. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Sun sneered, his lips curling into a cruel smile. Are you sure you can kill me? At that moment, a calm and ethereal voice rang out. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Sun's body trembled. His eyes were filled with disbelief as he turned around abruptly. He saw that Jean Sei had actually stood up. Moreover, the aura around her was increasing rapidly. She had actually recovered to her peak state very quickly. Moreover, her cultivation was still increasing. It was as if she was about to break through to the peak of the Saint Ruler realm. It was as if Jean Sei had eaten a great tonic. She didn't look weak at all. What terrified Heavenly Sovereign Nine Sun was that he realized that he had actually lost his sense of the life-exterminating parasitic worm. Whoosh! At that moment, Jean Sei rose into the air and flew directly toward the Taiji diagram. At the same time, mysterious yin and yang qi surged around Jean Sei. Vaguely, she seemed to have formed a mysterious connection with the Taiji diagram. Oh no! She wants to refine the Taiji diagram. Hurry up and stop her! Heavenly Sovereign Nine Sun roared angrily. His eyes were filled with shock and anger. He couldn't care less about why Jean Sei's life force hadn't been devoured by the life-exterminating parasitic worm. Moreover, she didn't seem to be affected at all. Her aura was becoming stronger and more terrifying. He only knew that the Taiji diagram couldn't fall into Jean Sei's hands. Otherwise, everything would be over. The Supreme Emperor formation of the Taisheng Dao Palace, the Yin-Yang Great Array, was controlled by the Taiji diagram. If Jean Sei refined the Taiji diagram, they would instantly lose control of the Yin-Yang Great Array. At that time, with an Extreme Emperor weapon and the Supreme Emperor formation, no one in the Taisheng Dao Palace would be able to stop Jean Sei. Their time of death was about to arrive. Chapter 2771. Boom! Heavenly Lord Nine Yin's eyes flashed with a hint of surprise, but he knew that he couldn't let Jean Southeast get close to the Yin-Yang Taijutsu no matter what. Jean Sei was originally the next master of the Taisheng Dao Palace appointed by Dao Lord Extermination. She had obtained control of the Yin-Yang Taijutsu and inherited the supreme Yin-Yang secret technique. If they hadn't threatened Jean Sei with immortality, Jean Sei wouldn't have handed over the Yin-Yang Taijutsu so easily. Blazing divine light rose around Heavenly Lord Nine Yin, and an extremely cold aura gushed out. He rose into the air and slammed his palm down on Jean Sei. The black palm print contained an extremely cold power that seemed to be able to freeze the entire world. Jean Sei, back off quickly. I don't want to kill you. Heavenly Lord Nine Yin said coldly. Elder Nine Yin, you and Nine Yang have colluded and betrayed the Taisheng Dao Palace. Today, I will clean up the sect on behalf of Master. Jean Sei said indifferently, her expression extremely calm. Her red dress fluttered in the wind. She was like a fairy from the ninth heaven. Her speed was extremely fast, as if she didn't stop at all because of Heavenly Lord Nine Yin's obstruction. You think you can do that? Heavenly Lord Nine Yin laughed in anger. The black palm print became even more terrifying. It contained an extremely cold aura and suddenly enveloped Jean Sei. Freeze. Just as the black palm print was about to land on Jean Sei's head, she suddenly spat out a word. Boom! A terrifying and vast power of time gushed out from Jean Sei's body. It seemed to be able to turn time and space around her. In an instant, it formed a vast and mysterious time domain around Jean Sei. That black palm print actually froze up in the void. Streams of the power of time flowed out and the black palm print shattered apart with a loud bang. What? How did you comprehend the great path of time? Heavenly Lord Nine Yin's expression changed, and a trace of disbelief appeared in his eyes. He could feel the time domain spreading out, making his movements extremely slow. This was clearly the great Tao of time. However, he knew very well that Jean Sei used the grand Tao of Yin and Yang as her foundation. She had comprehended the grand Tao of emotion from the grand Tao of indifference. Yin gave birth to Yang, and Yin and Yang worked together. This was Jean Sei's foundation. Since when had Jean Sei comprehended the grand Tao of time and cultivated it to such a terrifying level? Whoosh! Jean Sei ignored Nine Yin Empyrean. With a flick of her finger, the time compass flew out and emitted a blinding light. The mysterious power of time flowed like a river of time in the void. The time compass, which contained a vast amount of time origin power, came crashing down on Heavenly Venerate Nine Yin. This was what Jean Sei was relying on. When Ling Xiao gave the time compass to Jean Sei, it was outside the demon world. Only Extermination Dao Lord and a few others knew about it. Hence, Empyrean 9 Yin and Empyrean 9 Yang didn't know that Jin Se had an extreme Tao Emperor weapon other than the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram. Empyrean 9 Yang's extermination parasitic worms were indeed powerful. However, Jin Se had refined the time compass. The extermination parasitic worms couldn't resist the power of time. Ling Xiao and Jin Se were just putting on a show. They wanted to numb Empyrean 9 Yang so that they could seize the opportunity to seize the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram. As long as Jin Se seized the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram and controlled the Yin-Yang Great Formation, the outcome would be decided. An extreme Tao Emperor weapon that contains the Great Path origin power. How could you have such a treasure? Empyrean 9 Yin exclaimed. His expression instantly turned ugly. Rumble. The time compass floated in the void like a dazzling sun. It came crashing down on Empyrean 9 Yin with a terrifying aura. Empyrean 9 Yin's expression changed drastically. He didn't dare to underestimate it. As if he was facing a great enemy, he circulated all his cultivation to resist the power of the time compass. Jin Se didn't continue fighting with Empyrean 9 Yin. She instantly arrived in front of the time compass. Jin Se, Ling Xiao, you're courting death. Empyrean 9 Yang roared furiously. His eyes were filled with murderous intent and malevolent aura. Puff! He suddenly spat out a mouthful of essence blood. In an instant, the essence blood fused with the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram. The Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram emitted a dazzling light. It spun like a blade and obliterated the flesh on Ling Xiao's hands. Only a pair of crystal-clear finger bones were left. However, Ling Xiao didn't seem to feel any pain. He was still holding onto the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram tightly. At the same time, he madly circulated the heavenly might to suppress the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram. He didn't want it to leave. Puff! 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 Empyrean 9 Yang spat out 3 more mouthfuls of essence blood. That was the blood of his heart. It contained his complete understanding of the Great Tao. At this moment, it fused with the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram, causing it to erupt with a vast emperor's might. The Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram trembled violently. It actually sent the heavenly might flying back to Empyrean 9 Yang's hands. Great supreme indifference is the Tao of Yin and Yang. Extreme Yin gives birth to Yang. When Yin and Yang work together, all living beings will be born, Jin Se softly recited the scripture. Her body began to emit a sacred and mysterious light. The vast Yin and Yang qi in the surroundings surged towards her. It seemed as if she was exuding a kind of Yin and Yang origin energy fluctuation. When the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram sensed Jin Se's aura, it suddenly trembled. It spun in the void and slowly flew towards Jin Se, Great Supreme Tao Scripture. Ling Xiao's heart skipped a beat. He knew that Jin Se was reciting the Great Supreme Tao Scripture. In addition, there was also the Yin-Yang origin secret technique. This was the supreme secret technique to control the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram. In the Great Supreme Tao Palace, only the palace master and his successor could cultivate it. Empyrean 9 Yang had used his powerful cultivation to forcefully suppress the divinity of the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram. He had barely managed to refine a trace of it. He could use the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram to control the Yin-Yang Great Array. How could he snatch it from Jin Se now? Empyrean 9 Yang was about to vomit blood when he saw the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram flying towards Jin Se. His body trembled and his eyes were filled with anger. You are courting death. Empyrean 9 Yang roared. In an instant, endless blazing flames spewed out of his body. He was like a burning sun as he charged towards Jin Se. Old thing, do you really think I'm afraid of you? Ling Xiao said coldly. He took a step forward and instantly blocked Jin Se. Then, he threw a punch at Empyrean 9 Yang. Kacha! The void trembled and chaos surged in all directions. Ling Xiao's punch seemed to have evolved into a mysterious world. There was reincarnation, birth, and destruction. The mysterious scenes of the epochs and civilizations appeared. It was vast and endless and contained an unparalleled power. Chapter 2772. Epical Fist. Ling Xiao used the epical fist once again. It was the strongest power he had created after merging all techniques and nurturing all scriptures. It could contain and destroy everything. Every time Ling Xiao used the epical fist, he would gain new insights. The epical fist became more and more perfect, allowing Ling Xiao to comprehend the power of the great Tao origin. That was why Ling Xiao kept using the epical fist. He had a feeling that once he completely understood the supreme origin hidden in the epical fist, not only would the fist technique be perfected, but he would also enter a new realm. What? What kind of fist technique is this? It actually contained a trace of the origin energy. Could it be that you have broken through to the Imperial Emperor realm? Impossible. That's impossible. Your cultivation isn't as strong as mine. You must be bluffing. Kid, both of you will die today. Heavenly Sovereign Ninasun's body shook, and his eyes revealed a trace of shock. He shouted in disbelief, but then his eyes revealed an extremely cold killing intent. Rumble. He unleashed all his cultivation, and vast sacred light surged around him like a volcano erupting. He threw a punch at Ling Xiao, and a mysterious vision of 9 suns appeared behind him. Endless power gathered in his punch, causing his aura to soar to the extreme. Emperor Technique, 9 Suns Sky-Destroying Seal. This was one of the supreme emperor techniques of the Supreme Tao Palace, and also one of the emperor techniques recorded in the Supreme Tao scripture. When cultivated to the extreme, one could make the 9 suns appear in the sky and burn down all the realms. This emperor technique was also Heavenly Sovereign Ninasun's strongest power. It was extremely compatible with his body, and he had already cultivated it to the great accomplishment realm. Epical Fist vs 9 Suns Sky-Destroying Seal. The attack between Ling Xiao and Heavenly Sovereign 9 Suns was destined to be earth-shattering. It would determine the outcome of the battle, and even their lives. Both of them were extremely confident. They had already reached the peak of the sage path, and they were extremely confident in themselves. Crack. The two fist seals collided, and in an instant, billions of lightning bolts were released, causing the void to distort violently. Then, the void shattered, and in the endless chaotic turbulence, dazzling divine light bloomed. Everyone trembled, and their eyes were filled with respect as they stared at the two figures in the void. Who will win? The same thought appeared in everyone's mind, and they unconsciously became nervous. They felt that if it weren't for the protection of the array and the Tao inscriptions of the Supreme Tao Palace's ancestral masters, the shockwaves would have destroyed the Supreme Tao Palace. Naturally, there was no suspense as they were completely annihilated. Rumble. At that moment, everyone was shocked to discover that the scene of the 9 suns in the void had actually dimmed. In the end, the suns exploded one after another. Endless storms of divine light surged, and a figure was directly sent flying out from within. Poo! The figure suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His aura instantly became dispirited, and his face was incomparably pale. Heavenly Sovereign 9 Sun. Sovereign 9 Sun Sovereign how? How is this possible? Someone exclaimed, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. Rumble. Blazing lightning flashed, and in the divine light storm, a figure bathed in divine light walked out. His white robe was peerless, and he was in high spirits. His entire body exuded an invincible aura. Ling Xiao. Many disciples of the Supreme Tao Palace looked at Ling Xiao in the void, and their eyes were filled with respect. This was the heaven's chosen son, the peerless figure who had suppressed countless geniuses in the divine world 200 years ago, and made countless monstrous kings pale in comparison. This was Ling Xiao. Now, he had really returned. With the bearing of a king, he swept across the world with the power of wind and thunder. Even a heavenly sovereign was no match for his punch. Who in the divine world could stop him? Previously, when Ling Xiao had first appeared, although everyone was shocked, they also felt that it was already 200 years later. The divine world was brimming with vitality, and geniuses were everywhere. Even if the heaven's chosen one had returned, so what? They didn't think that Ling Xiao would still have the strength to suppress his peers 200 years later. Therefore, Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yang and Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yin chose to break off relations with the War God Temple and compromise with the other immortal sacred grounds. However, this time, everyone in the Supreme Tao Palace really felt that Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yang and Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yin had made a mistake. Those immortal sacred grounds, ancient clans, and monarch clans that had wanted to kill Ling Xiao were in trouble now. Rumble. At that moment, Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yin escaped from the time domain with great difficulty and broke free from the suppression of the time compass. He wanted to help Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yang. However, when he saw the scene in front of him, he was stunned. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yang was defeated by Ling Xiao with a single punch, and it looked like he had suffered heavy injuries. "You'd better behave yourself." Ling Xiao looked at Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yin indifferently. Then, he waved his hand, and the time compass landed in his palm. It emitted an incomparably intimate and sentimental fluctuation, like a wanderer who had been away for a long time finally meeting his family. Then, it bloomed with an incomparably bright light in Ling Xiao's hand. Rumble. Chaotic light surged within the time compass, and the river of time revolved around it. A mysterious figure seemed to appear vaguely. His aura engulfed the world and swept through the 9 heavens and 10 lands. He came from the ancient era and exuded an eternal aura. Although his face couldn't be seen clearly, his aura was like that of an emperor above the 9 heavens. Everyone trembled and almost couldn't help but kneel down. Whoosh! The figure slapped down with his palm. The time compass bloomed with dazzling light and merged with the palm. It seemed to cover the sky and the sun, and its aura was terrifying to the extreme. No! Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yin's body trembled, and his eyes were filled with despair. He roared crazily and wanted to resist. However, all his attacks were destroyed and absorbed by the time compass. Then, his entire body was slapped down from the sky by the palm. Rumble. The great emperor trembled violently. Emperor Nine Yin's body suddenly shattered and turned into dust. His primordial spirit struggled to escape, but it was instantly imprisoned by divine chains of order. Then, it was directly suppressed by the time compass. That figure was naturally the mark of the Flowing Time Great Emperor. Ling Xiao had obtained the inheritance of the Flowing Time Great Emperor and had completely refined the time compass. He was the true owner of the time compass. When he took out the time compass, he directly activated the vast origin energy within the time compass, and even the mark of the Flowing Time Great Emperor appeared. Heavenly Sovereign Nine Yin was naturally suppressed. Chapter 2773. Boom! At the same time, Jin Sei's robes fluttered as the Yin and Yang Qi flowed around her. The Yin-Yang Taiji diagram emitted a mysterious Taoist rhyme that enveloped her. Jin Sei had also refined it and regained control. The Yin-Yang Taiji diagram floated above Jin Sei's head. The surrounding Yin and Yang energy surged toward Jin Sei, making her aura stronger and stronger. In the void, the vast Yin-Yang formation seemed to have formed a mysterious resonance with Jin Sei. It made Jin Sei look like the embodiment of the Yin and Yang Great Tao, mysterious and holy. Damn it! How can he be so strong? Why is even a heavenly venerable no match for him? I can't accept this. The Sun King's eyes were filled with fear and anger. He had thought that Ling Xiao would surrender under his grandfather's threat. However, he had not expected that Jin Sei would not be threatened by the life-exterminating parasite worm at all. Instead, she had played along with Ling Xiao and turned the situation around. Now, Heavenly Venerable Nine Yin's physical body had been destroyed by Ling Xiao and his primordial spirit was suppressed in the chronocompass. As for the Nine Sun Heavenly Exalted, he was also seriously injured. Furthermore, the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram, the Heavenly Might Prison Steel and the Time Compass, the 3 extreme Tao Emperor armaments, had all locked onto the Nine Sun Heavenly Exalted. Even those who had sided with Heavenly Venerable Nine Yang and Heavenly Venerable Nine Yin were panicking. They were like birds that had been startled by the twang of a bow. Elder Nine Yang, what else do you have to say? Jin Se looked at Heavenly Venerable Nine Yang indifferently. There was a complicated look in her eyes. Both Heavenly Venerable Nine Yang and Heavenly Venerable Nine Yin had treated her extremely well. After knowing that she had the Supreme Taoist body, they had treated her as the hope of the Supreme Tao Palace and had nurtured her with great care. Although the Supreme Tao Palace did not have many disciples in the past, everyone had gathered together and erupted with great cohesion. Jin Se had liked such a sect. However, 200 years ago, the Supreme Tao Palace had been targeted by many immortal sacred grounds and monarch clans since the extermination path master had helped Ling Xiao at Jin Se's request. Over the past 200 years, the Taisheng Tao Palace's disciples had suffered heavy casualties. Many elders had also been murdered. Even Emperor Ninsen's son and several of his disciples hadn't died in the war with the demons, but to the revenge of other immortal sacred lands. Not even their corpses remained. In the end, Heavenly Venerables Nine Yang and Nine Yin were truly afraid. After the Tao Lord extermination left, he took several celestial venerables with him, leaving only celestial venerables Nine Yang and Nine Yin to assist Jin Se in guarding the Taisheng Tao Palace. They blamed everything that had happened to the Taisheng Tao Palace on Jin Se and wanted to use her to quell the anger of the other immortal sacred lands. It was just that they did not expect that Ling Xiao's return would cause all their plans to go down the drain. There's nothing to say. The winner takes all. Jin Se, I still don't regret my choice. If you hadn't dragged the Taisheng Tao Palace into the mud, the Taisheng Tao Palace wouldn't have suffered such great losses in the past 200 years. You deserve to die. Heavenly Venerate Nine Yang's face was pale as he sneered. Elder Nine Yang, do you really think this is all because of me? That's right. 200 years ago, I was the one who begged Master to help Brother Ling Xiao. Even if Master didn't do anything, given the relationship between the War God Hall and the Taisheng Tao Palace, would those people have let the Taisheng Tao Palace off? Jin Se's eyes revealed a trace of pain, as she sighed. Jin Se, there's no need to say anything to him. They are just a bunch of self-pitying losers. They don't dare seek revenge on those people and only know how to bully their own people. They killed the disciples of the Taisheng Tao Palace. Don't you know how to take revenge? If they killed one disciple of the Taisheng Tao Palace, you killed 10 of them. If they killed one elder of the Taisheng Tao Palace, you killed one of their sacred rulers. At the end of the day, you are just too cowardly. Ling Xiao held on to Jin Se and sneered. Ling Xiao, you don't know how strong they are. The reason why the immortal sacred lands and monarch clans were able to pass down their legacies for hundreds of millions of years is because their foundations and methods are not something you can imagine. So what if you can defeat a heavenly venerate? Can you defeat an imperial emperor? They can even kill an imperial emperor. What do you have to fight them? I am not a coward. I just want to protect the Taisheng Tao Palace. Now that things have come to this, there is nothing more to say. If you want to kill me or torture me, do as you please. Heavenly Venerate Nine Sons said with a pale face. A trace of despair appeared in his eyes as he slowly closed them. He had actually accepted his fate. Protect the Taisheng Tao Palace. The great calamity of an era is coming. This might be the most terrifying great calamity of an era. All the worlds will be swept up in it. When the time comes, the worlds will disappear and the Eldritch continent will be formed again. The entire human race will not be able to escape, let alone the Taisheng Tao Palace. So what if those people are strong? They can never make me, Ling Xiao, submit. I, Ling Xiao, am back. Whether it is the War God Hall or the Taisheng Tao Palace, I will take revenge on those people one by one. However, I'm afraid you won't have the chance to see it. Since you want to die, I will fulfill your wish. Ling Xiao said coldly. His eyes were filled with a bright light. Rumble. Terrifying fluctuations emanated from his body as if he was about to attack and kill Heavenly Venerate Nine Sons. No. You can't kill us. My grandfather is the Taisheng Elder. Only the sect master can kill him. Jin Se, are you trying to betray your master? Have you forgotten what my grandfather taught you back then? You can't kill him. You can't kill me. Helios Monarch was completely flustered. He hurriedly shouted as he stared at Jin Se with pleading eyes. If you knew this would happen, you wouldn't have done it in the first place. Jin Se sighed softly. Her eyes were filled with desolation. In fact, Jin Se wasn't happy at all about killing Heavenly Venerate 9 sons and Heavenly Venerate 9 sons. These were Heavenly Venerates of the Taisheng Dao Palace. The death of one was a great price, let alone 2 Heavenly Venerates. However, there had to be an end to today's matter. You're right. Jin Se won't kill your grandfather. However, what if I kill your grandfather? At that moment, an extremely cold voice rang out in the void. Crack. The void distorted and dazzling divine light shone. 4 figures appeared in the void. 3 men and 1 woman, exuding powerful auras. The leader was a middle-aged woman in a Taoist robe. Her aura was cold and sharp. Although she was beautiful, she exuded a chill that kept people away. The aura around her was unfathomable and surged like the sea. At that moment, her eyes were filled with cold killing intent. Master? Jin Se's eyes revealed a trace of surprise. The middle-aged Taoist nun was the Taisheng Dao Palace Master, the Extermination Sect Master. End of chapter. Chapter 2774. The Path Master is back. Everyone in the Taisheng Taoist Palace was shocked, and their eyes were filled with joy. Even the extreme young monarch and the others paled and showed a trace of despair. No one had expected the Path Master to return at this time. The Path Master was the master of the Taisheng Dao Palace and had great prestige in the Taisheng Dao Palace. He was the spiritual pillar and faith of all the disciples in the Taisheng Dao Palace. However, the extreme young monarch knew how terrifying the Path Master was. She was ruthless to the demon race and other races. She had always killed all of them. She was even more ruthless to her own people. Anyone who dared to betray the Taisheng Dao Palace would be mercilessly killed by her. In the past, Extermination Daolord's nephew had colluded with other immortal sacred grounds in order to steal the exalted Dao scripture. However, when Extermination Daolord found out about this, no matter how much her nephew cried and regretted, she showed no mercy and killed him with her own hands. One could imagine that with such a peerless ruthless person returning, there was no way they could survive. Path Master, you, weren't you severely injured by the demon race in the extraterritorial battlefield? Heavenly Sovereign 9 Son was also shocked, and his eyes were filled with disbelief. A few years ago, the Path Master had gone to the extraterritorial battlefield. Later on, news had spread that the Path Master had fallen into the demon race's trap and had been severely injured by a demon king. No one knew if he was dead or alive. It was because of this news that the Taisheng Dao Palace had sent 2 Heavenly Venerate Patriarchs to the extraterritorial battlefield. This had given Heavenly Sovereign 9 Son and Heavenly Sovereign 9 Son the opportunity to take over the Taisheng Dao Palace. In their opinion, the Path Master had been severely injured by the Demon King and was dead for sure. Who would have thought that the Path Master would return? Martial Granduncle 9 Son, I'm afraid I've disappointed you. Not only did my mother escape from death, but she also obtained a fortuitous encounter and improved her cultivation. Why must you kill junior sister Jin's? Is it because she's Ling Zhao's partner? A young man in a Taoist robe who was in high spirits behind Daolord Extermination sighed lightly. He was Feng Qingyang, the son of the Path Master. He was worried about the Path Master, so he had gone to the extraterritorial battlefield with the 2 Heavenly Venerate Patriarchs. Actually, they had already been back for a while. However, they had been watching the farce that Heavenly Venerate 9 Sons and the others were putting on. Senior Brother 9 Yang, Senior Brother 9 Yin, you actually did such a disgraceful thing? Jin Se is the next Taoist master of the Taisheng Dao Palace that we have appointed. You all have committed treason. How should you be punished? Before we left, we asked you to assist Jin Se. Is this how you assist her? I'm afraid you guys can't wait for us and Miju to die in the foreign battlefield, right? That way, you can completely control the Supreme Tao Palace. Behind the extermination Tao Lord, there were two old men with white hair and beards. Their auras were unfathomable, and their eyes were filled with rage. Speaking of which, the four heavenly venerate patriarchs were also fellow disciples. They usually had a very good relationship with each other, which was why they were reassured to let Heavenly Venerate 9 Yang and Heavenly Venerate 9 Yin stay behind to assist Jin Se. However, they had never imagined that something like this would happen. Martial Uncle 9 Yang, Martial Uncle 9 Yin, you've really disappointed me. The extermination Tao Lord looked indifferently at Heavenly Venerate 9 Yang and Heavenly Venerate 9 Yin. His eyes were filled with deep disappointment as he spoke coldly. The extermination Tao Lord exuded a vast and unparalleled aura. Like a heavenly venerate, he was surrounded by an invincible aura that seemed to be able to suppress everything. Her cultivation had also broken through to the heavenly venerate realm. The extermination Daelord's encounter this time was indeed very dangerous. She had survived the pursuit of the demon race's demon monarch. Furthermore, she had entered a star's secret realm and obtained an unparalleled opportunity that had greatly increased her cultivation. However, she had never imagined that the Supreme Tao Palace would be in such a huge mess. Martial Nephew Miju, I have nothing to say. You are the Tao Lord. You have every right to kill me. Heavenly Venerate 9 Yang closed his eyes and looked as though he was at the mercy of others. He also understood that there was nothing more to say. Speaking of which, he was also doing this for the Taisheng Tao Palace. Even though he refused to admit that he was weak, his feelings for the Taisheng Tao Palace were deeper than anyone else's. Now that he had won, he was willing to accept his death. Tao Lord, too many people have died in the Supreme Tao Palace in the past 200 years. If this goes on, I'm afraid the disciples will be disloyal. We are weak, but we also want to protect the Supreme Tao Palace. I only hope that after we die, you can ease your relationship with the immortal sacred grounds. The Supreme Tao Palace cannot be destroyed in our hands. Heavenly Venerate 9 Yin's primordial spirit had also been released by Ling Xiao. It floated in the void and had a pleading expression as it spoke to the extermination Tao Lord. Ling Xiao and Jin Se looked at the extermination Tao Lord and waited for her decision. Martial Uncle 9 Yang, Martial Uncle 9 Yin, you have committed such a grave mistake. Your crimes are unforgivable. Even if I kill you, it is only right. However, you are the heavenly venerates of the human race. You should not die here. You should die on the battlefield of the human race. Go to the battlefield outside the region and never return to the divine realm. The extermination Tao Lord said slowly. This sentence seemed to have drained all of her energy. Her face was filled with desolation and sorrow. Did Heavenly Venerate 9 Yang and Heavenly Venerate 9 Yin deserve to die? Indeed, they deserved to die. From Ling Xiao's point of view, they were his enemies. Since they dared to harm Jin Se, they had to be completely annihilated to prevent future troubles. However, they were heavenly venerates of the human race. After the 9 emperors of the human race had not produced a supreme emperor for hundreds of millions of years. Now that the great tribulation of the era had arrived, the human race, which had occupied the divine realm, would become a juicy piece of meat in the eyes of the other races. The tragic fate of the human race could be imagined. Heavenly Venerate experts stood at the pinnacle of the Saint Path. They could touch the Supreme Emperor realm with a single step. They were considered the strongest of the human race. A single word from them could decide the life and death of hundreds of millions of people. Including the extermination Tao Lord, the Supreme Tao Palace only had 5 heavenly venerates. If Heavenly Venerate 9 Yang and Heavenly Venerate 9 Yin were killed, it would be a great loss to the Supreme Tao Palace. Furthermore, to the human race heavenly venerates, being buried on the battlefield outside the region was their most sacred and honorable resting place. You won't kill us? Heavenly Venerate 9 Yang and Heavenly Venerate 9 Yin trembled. Their eyes were filled with disbelief. In their opinion, the extermination Tao Lord was vicious and merciless. They would definitely die this time. However, who would have thought that the extermination Tao Lord would allow them to leave the Supreme Tao Palace and head to the battlefield outside the region? Was the extermination Tao Lord really not worried about them? Was he not afraid that they would seek refuge with other immortal sacred grounds? End of chapter. Chapter 2775. There was a glimmer of hope in the eyes of the extreme young king and the other elders. However, when they heard about the extraterritorial battlefield, their faces turned pale. The extreme young king's eyes were filled with fear. The extraterritorial battlefield was the most tragic battlefield for the human race. Even a sage ruler would not be able to hold on for long in the extraterritorial battlefield. It was a slaughterhouse for the human race, a hell on earth. Uncle Masters, I still remember how you protected and loved me in the past. You were full of expectations and hope for me. You thought that I was the hope of the Supreme Tao Palace and gave me all the benefits without holding back. I still remember that Ling Shuzi of the Fane of Destiny plotted to injure me. It was you who resisted the pressure of the Fane of Destiny and chased him for 30 million miles to kill him and avenge me. Because of that, you were even heavily injured by the Fane of Destiny's ancestor. I remember many things. I remember all the good you've done for me. You all truly love the Taishang Dao Palace. You all have sacrificed too much for it. But why have you become like this? I don't recognize you anymore. You're so unfamiliar and weak. Are you willing to give up your dignity just to survive? Uncle Masters, you know my temper. I didn't kill you not because of what you've done for me, but because I don't think you should die here. You should die with value. So, go to the extraterritorial battlefield. Even if you die, you should die with a bang on the battlefield against the foreign races. The extermination path master said slowly. Her words rang in the hearts of 9 yang and 9 yin heavenly sovereigns, causing them to tremble violently. Their eyes were filled with incomparable shame. They had never thought that the extermination path master would let them go so easily. They knew the extermination path master's methods very well. He had always killed all the traitors of the Supreme Tao Palace without leaving any future trouble. So, why did he show mercy to them? Moreover, the extermination path master's words of "even if you die, you should die on the battlefield" shocked them and made them feel extremely ashamed. Their blood that had been silent for a long time seemed to be boiling. Ling Zhao's expression was calm. With his temper, there was no way he would let the extreme young king and the extreme young king go. He would definitely kill them and not leave any future trouble. However, the extermination path master was Jin Sei's master. Ling Zhao believed that she had her reasons for doing this, so he did not say anything. Great. Martial nephew extermination path master, since you're willing to spare our lives, we'll take them to the extraterritorial battlefield and never return to the divine world. The 9 sons heavenly sovereign said slowly with a hint of determination in his eyes. Uncle Masters, I hope you won't disappoint the ancestors of the Supreme Tao Palace. The extermination path master said of the Supreme Tao of Destiny. I'm not going to the extraterrant of death. Even if I die, Even if I die, I'd die to die. Exasperated King Yang King. Yang King's young emperors said, Extreme King, death 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 King Yang King, King of to say to the to see, to Emperor to die death death death, he. Of the Yang Cross, of. Him Yang Master. Of Earth was. If you don't go to the extraterritorial battlefield, you'll die. The Tao Lord Extermination glanced at the Helios monarch with a hint of disappointment in his eyes. When Feng Qingyang was not in the Supreme Tao Palace, Jin Sei and the Extreme Young King were known as the Supreme Tao Palace's unparalleled prodigies. However, the Extreme Young King was too disappointing. With his temperament, even if he obtained a large amount of resources and improved his cultivation by leaps and bounds, it was almost impossible for him to reach the Supreme God realm in the future. Were the descendants of the 9 sons heavenly venerate so afraid of death? Path Master, I was wrong. I shouldn't have targeted junior sister Jin Sei. Please spare me. I promise I won't do anything to let the Supreme Tao Palace down. I only beg you not to send me to the extra-terran of destiny. The extreme young king did not have a shred of integrity. He knelt before the extermination path master and begged. You only have two choices. Either you go to the extra-terran of destiny or you die. The extermination path master said indifferently. He was not moved at all. Even if I die, I won't go to the extra-terran of destiny. The extreme young king roared, his eyes filled with anger. Do you want to die? Then I'll fulfill your wish. At that moment, Nine Sons Heavenly Venerate said faintly. His eyes were filled with disappointment. Boom! He instantly slammed his palm down. His palm contained blazing flames. It was like a divine mountain that instantly suppressed the extreme young king. The extreme young king trembled. He had not expected the extreme young king to attack him. Grandfather, you, the extreme young king's eyes were filled with disbelief. I was wrong. I'm afraid of death, and my descendants are also afraid of death. If I let you stay, how am I supposed to face the ancestors of the Supreme Tao Palace? Extreme Young, grandfather will accompany you soon. The extreme young king's body trembled. His eyes were filled with incomparable pain, but he still attacked resolutely. The palm print seemed to be able to destroy the heavens and earth. It directly obliterated the extreme young king's physical body and primordial spirit. The extreme young king had not expected the all-out attack of a heavenly venerate. Thus, he was killed by the extreme young king. Who else is unwilling to go to the extraterritorial battlefield? Nine Sons Heavenly Sovereign's eyes were cold as he swept his gaze over the Supreme Elders. Immediately, the Supreme Elders' expressions changed. They could not help but lower their heads to show their submission. No one else dared to express any objections. Jin Sei, I was wrong. You are the future hope of the Supreme Tao Palace. Your choice is the most correct. Let us two old bones lend you a helping hand. Nine Yang and Nine Yin Heavenly Sovereigns looked at each other. Their eyes were filled with determination. Boom! Terrifying divine light rose around the two of them. In an instant, a vast amount of life origin gushed out like a great river and surged toward Jin Sei. Jin Sei's aura began to soar. Why do you have to do this? A complicated look appeared in Jin Sei's eyes. She could see that the extreme young king and extreme young king were already prepared to die. Even if they went to the extraterritorial battlefield, they would not be able to last long. However, Jin Sei was gratified that they had actually repented at the last moment. Rumble. Vast amounts of life essence and life origin energy surged into Jin Sei's body. The two heavenly venerates had burned their lifespan to pass on their cultivation to Jin Sei. This caused Jin Sei's aura to soar. Her cultivation almost instantly reached the peak of an ordinary great sage ruler. She was breaking through to the peak of the great sage ruler stage. In the end, Jin Sei's cultivation broke through to the peak of the great sage ruler stage. Let's go. After the extreme young king and extreme young king finished passing on their cultivation, they did not look at Jin Sei, the extermination path master, and the others. They instantly soared into the sky and swept up the Grand Supreme Elders who had previously submitted to them. They tore through the void and teleported toward the extraterritorial battlefield. Resolute and tragic. Forward courageously. P.S. I had a social gathering tonight and drank a little too much. There are only 2 updates today. Everyone, rest early. End of chapter. Chapter 2776. Ling Xiao had a complicated look in his eyes as he watched Heavenly Venerate Nine Yang, Heavenly Venerate Nine Yin, and the others leave. Did he hate Heavenly Sovereigns Nine Yang and Nine Yin? Yes. If Ling Xiao and Extermination Path Master hadn't returned, Jin Sei might have been sent to the other immortal sacred grounds. Jin Sei had almost died at their hands. Therefore, Ling Xiao wished he could cut them into pieces. However, from the perspective of the Supreme Tao Palace, they weren't wrong. They just wanted to protect the Supreme Tao Palace. In their opinion, sacrificing Jin Se to protect the Supreme Tao Palace was worth it. They were detestable, but also pitiful. As heavenly sovereigns, they were cowards when facing the other immortal sacred grounds. They didn't dare to go against them and only wanted to sacrifice Jin Se's life to appease the immortal sacred grounds. Therefore, in Ling Zhao's opinion, they had no hope of reaching the Divine Emperor realm. There was fear in his heart. Without an invincible heart, how could he touch the Supreme God realm? However, what surprised Ling Zhao was that Extermination Path Master hadn't killed them. Instead, he'd sent them to the extraterritorial battlefield. However, before they left, they'd consumed millions of years of their lifespan to strengthen Jin Se and raise her cultivation to the peak Holy Ruler realm. She wasn't far from the peerless Holy Ruler realm. This was a supreme opportunity. Perhaps they were trying to atone for their sins. They consumed 99% of their lifespan to forge a supreme foundation for Jin Se. I'm afraid they only have 100 years left. It seems like they're already prepared to die. However, if they knew this would happen, why did they do it in the first place? Extermination Path Master muttered to himself. There was a trace of sadness in his eyes. The two heavenly sovereign patriarchs behind him also looked sad. After all, they were fellow disciples who had been together for countless years. Although they had their differences, their relationship was extremely deep. They hated each other's misfortune and were angry that they didn't fight. Now that the Supreme Tao Palace had lost Heavenly Sovereign 9 Yang and Heavenly Sovereign 9 Yin, its strength had weakened significantly. Although this internal strife had been resolved in the end, everyone's hearts were incomparably heavy. Jin Se's eyes were slightly red. Although she hated Heavenly Sovereign 9 Yang and Heavenly Sovereign 9 Yin, when she thought of the past, she felt even more sorrow. Those two old ancestors who had once held her with endless expectations, she would probably never see them again. It's best for them to go to the battlefield outside the realm. Human Empyreans should naturally shoulder their responsibilities. Don't be sad, Jins. What they did is wrong. Ling Zhao walked to Jin Se's side with longevity in his arms. He gently held Jin Se's hand and said slowly, "Mother, I miss you so much. Do you want to live forever?" Changsheng's eyes were filled with excitement as she struggled out of Ling Zhao's embrace. She stretched out her hands towards Jin Se as she spoke in a childish voice. "Of course I want to live forever. Changsheng, mother will never leave you again." Changsheng's words seemed to make the sadness on Jin Se's face dissipate a little. Jin Se's eyes were filled with endless gentleness as she hugged Changsheng tightly in her arms. Although she was smiling, there were sparkling tears in her eyes. That was a happy smile. Jin Se's heart was filled with guilt. Changsheng was still so young, but she had no choice but to leave her. Although she had the protection of the white dragon horse, Jin Se's heart was filled with endless worry and heartache. During the time she was imprisoned, every day felt like a year to Jin Se. She was afraid that something bad would happen to Changsheng. Now, everything is great. Big brother Ling Zhao is back, and he even brought my baby Changsheng. Silly girl, you're already a mother. Why are you still crying? Jin Se, you've suffered all these years. Our family will never be separated again. Ling Zhao said with a smile as he gently wiped away the tears at the corner of Jin Se's eyes. His eyes were bright and warm, just like when Jin Se first saw Ling Zhao. Mother, you're crying. Hee hee, shameful, shameful. Mother, don't cry, okay? Changsheng is so obedient. I won't make you angry in the future. Changsheng blinked her big bright eyes as she giggled. Her eyes were extremely pure, and her long eyelashes fluttered. She looked as exquisite as a porcelain doll. Changsheng is so obedient. Jin Se's face was full of smiles as she patted Changsheng's little head. However, her other hand was tightly clasped with Ling Zhao's hand. She had never let go. Bright sunlight shone down from the sky, shining on Ling Zhao, Jin Se, and Changsheng. Their bodies were glowing, and they looked like a beautiful painting. No one could bear to break this beautiful scene. How shameful. This family is showing off their love in public. They don't even know how to avoid it. They're torturing single dogs. No, they're torturing horses. The white dragon horse's eyes darted around as it muttered softly. However, no one came to disturb Ling Xiao, Jin Sei, and Chang Sheng. The two heavenly venerables left quietly. There were still some loopholes and flaws in the Yinyang Great Array. They went to inspect the array and intimidate the surrounding rascals. Feng Qingyang went to appease the disciples of the Taisheng Dao Palace. As for Dao Lord Extermination, he had been scrutinizing Ling Xiao. Dao Lord Extermination's expression was cold as he stared at Ling Xiao unkindly. You're the one who made Jin Sei lose her appetite and search for you for 200 years. Ling Xiao, although you're the chosen one, you're a bastard through and through. After hearing Dao Lord Extermination's words, Ling Xiao wasn't angry. Instead, he smiled bitterly and bowed to Dao Lord Extermination. Senior, you're right. I'm a bastard. I've made Jin Sei suffer all these years. However, I still have to thank Senior for taking care of Jin Sei. I can't thank you enough. I don't need your gratitude. Jin Sei is my disciple. It's my duty to protect her. If it weren't for you, Jin Sei might have broken through to the heavenly venerate realm by now. To be honest, I don't like you. Jin Sei has suffered greatly by following you. Dao Lord Extermination said coldly. Ling Xiao could feel Dao Lord Extermination's hostility and deep resentment. Dao Lord Extermination really didn't like Ling Xiao. 200 years ago, during the battle at Ling Xiao Mountain Range, if it weren't for Jin Sei's pleading, Dao Lord Extermination wouldn't have wanted to save Ling Xiao at all. In Dao Lord Extermination's opinion, Jin Sei was the hope of the Taisheng Dao Palace. She should be like him and pursue the pinnacle of the great Dao. She shouldn't be restricted by love. Moreover, because of Ling Xiao, Jin Sei had been severely injured several times. After Ling Xiao self-destructed, she had embarked on a journey alone to find Ling Xiao. End of chapter. Chapter 2777. Every time she thought about it, Annihilation Daylord's heart ached. She hated Ling Xiao as much as she loved Jin Sei. Moreover, when Jin Sei had returned to the God world 200 years ago, she had told Dao Lord Extermination that Ling Xiao was still alive. She had even been pregnant at that time. But Ling Xiao, that bastard, actually didn't return to the God realm to look for Jin Sei for 200 years. He allowed Jin Sei to be pregnant for 200 years and gave birth to Changsheng alone. The Dao Lord of Extermination knew how much Jin Sei missed Ling Xiao, but she had waited for 200 years. And now, Changsheng was already 4 years old, and this bastard Ling Xiao actually only came back now. When the Extermination Dao Lord thought of this, he wished he could slap Ling Xiao to death. Grandmaster Grandmother, can you not blame father? At this moment, Changsheng's obedient and somewhat aggrieved voice rang out. Mija Dao Lord lowered his head and saw Changsheng looking at him with her big, watery eyes. Changsheng had left Jin Sei's embrace and was now hugging Mija Dao Lord's leg. Her eyes were filled with pleading. Her gaze was extremely pure and she looked as though she was about to cry. The coldness on Dao Lord Extermination's face instantly disappeared and was replaced by an extremely pained expression. He hastily pulled Longevity into his embrace. Changsheng, don't cry. Grandma. Grandma is angry at your father. How much suffering did that bastard make your mother suffer? Changsheng, be good. Grandma won't scold him anymore, okay? The Dao Lord of Extermination was utterly defeated by Longevity, his eyes filled with incomparable affection. The white dragon horse's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Is this still the vicious and merciless Extermination Dao Lord that I knew? The white dragon horse widened its eyes in disbelief. Previously, the white dragon horse had stolen an origin source sacred herb in the Supreme Dao Palace. When it was discovered by the Annihilation Dao Lord, it was almost chopped to death. That ferocious face of the Annihilation Dao Lord had become a nightmare for the white dragon horse. Extermination Dao Lord had an illustrious reputation in the entire divine world. He was a peerless, ruthless person. He was always blunt with his words. Even Feng Qingyang, the son of Extermination Dao Lord, had never received a smile or praise from Extermination Dao Lord. He would always be beaten up miserably every time. The white dragon horse rubbed its eyes. Was it hallucinating? Scram! The Dao Lord of Extermination seemed to have heard the white dragon horse's muttering. Instantly, a ferocious glint appeared in his eyes. He swung his palm and sent the white dragon horse flying. Ah! The white dragon horse let out a blood-curdling screech and instantly disappeared. No one knew where the Dao Lord of Extermination had sent it. Thank you, Grandma. Grandma is the best. When Changsheng heard Miju Dao Master's words, his tears turned into laughter. His eyes were filled with excitement. He hugged Miju Dao Master's neck and kissed him on the cheek. This mouthful seemed to have melted Extermination Dao Lord's heart. A soul-stirring smile appeared on Extermination Dao Lord's face. It was filled with endless love. He held Changsheng in his arms and did not intend to return it to Jinsei. On the other hand, Changsheng kept calling her Grandma again and again, causing Dao Lord Extermination to be overjoyed. Mother, you are so biased. At this moment, Feng Qingyang also saw this scene from afar. He let out a miserable howl in his heart as his eyes revealed a look of envy and jealousy. He was so envious of Changsheng. Although he was the son of Extermination Dao Lord, he had never been treated well by Extermination Dao Lord. Since young, Feng Qingyang had grown up under Extermination Dao Lord's punches and kicks. If he did something wrong, he would be beaten. If he did something right, he would never be rewarded by Extermination Dao Lord. This had caused a deep shadow in his heart since young. When did Extermination Dao Lord treat him like how he treated Changsheng? He did not even dare to dream about it. Sometimes, Feng Qingyang even thought that he might not be Extermination Dao Lord's biological son. Perhaps he was the son of her enemy, which was why he had suffered so much. Feng Qingyang felt hurt when he saw Extermination Dao Lord and Changsheng getting along so well. Ling Zhao's eyes were filled with an extremely strange expression. When he saw Extermination Dao Lord earlier, he felt a little guilty. After all, she was Jinsei's master. He actually felt like he was meeting his mother-in-law. Even if he was reprimanded, he could only accept it humbly. Ling Zhao was even prepared to be beaten up by Extermination Dao Lord, but he did not expect Changsheng to resolve it with just a few words. When Master left the Supreme Dao Palace, Changsheng had just turned 1 year old. At that time, Master loved Changsheng the most. Master would often carry Changsheng. I know Master has an obsession, but Changsheng seems to have resolved Master's obsession. That's why Master's cultivation was able to break through consecutively. Jinsei stood beside Ling Zhao and explained to him with a smile. Extermination Dao Lord, it seems like she isn't like the legends. She really loves Changsheng. But Jinsei, you have suffered all these years. I am sorry. Ling Zhao laughed bitterly. However, before he could finish, he felt a fragrant wind blowing in his face. Jinsei's hand covered Ling Zhao's mouth. Brother Ling Zhao, I won't allow you to say that. Since the God of War world until now, you have lived 2 lives. I have also waited for you for 10,000 years because I know that I will definitely be able to wait for you. There's no need to say these things between us. I know your intentions and I understand your ambitions. That's why I will follow you to the top. Jinsei smiled at Ling Zhao. Her eyes were filled with a kind of happiness. Her red dress fluttered in the wind, and her black hair fell like a waterfall. She was even more beautiful than before. She looked at Ling Zhao with eyes full of worship and love. That kind of love made Ling Zhao's heart tremble. Ling Zhao seemed to be in a daze. Jinsei was becoming more and more beautiful, and her cultivation was also becoming stronger. However, the only thing that did not change was her gaze. It was as if it reminded Ling Zhao of 10,000 years ago. When they first met on Gemini Mountain, Ling Zhao had been mistaken for life. At that time, Jinsei was just like now. She smiled faintly and called out, "Brother Ling Xiao," with a smile. Time passed, and she loved you as before. However, Jean Sei was still the same Jean Sei from before. Everything was still the best. With a wife like this, what more can a husband ask for? I, Ling Xiao, don't deserve it. Ling Xiao was a little emotional. He reached out and pulled Jean Sei into his arms as he muttered to himself. At this moment, looking at Changsheng's pure smile and feeling Jean Sei's breathing and heartbeat in his arms, Ling Xiao's heart was at peace. P.S. Second update. Everyone, rest early. There have been too many things to do in the past 2 days. Yesterday, I missed one update. Today, I missed one update. Tomorrow, I will make up for it all. End of chapter. Chapter 2778. The aftermath of the battle in the Supreme Tao Palace was quickly quelled. The Supreme Tao Palace was a reclusive place. Although it was located in the Taiqing celestial domain, it was like a world of its own. Very few people dared to spy on the Taiqing celestial domain. Furthermore, the Yin-Yang Great Array had been activated during Ling Zhao's battle with Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun and Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun and Heavenly Venerate Nine Sun. Thus, no one had noticed that an earth-shattering battle had taken place in the Taishang Palace. However, due to the opening of the Supreme Emperor Array, the Yin and Yang Grand Array, it aroused the suspicions of some experts. They sent out their divine consciousness to investigate what was happening in the Supreme Tao Palace, but they were unable to penetrate the barrier of the Emperor Array. The Supreme Tao Palace will be activated today. Seal the mountain. No one is allowed to leak the news of Ling Zhao's return to the realm of the gods. With the Tao Lord Extermination's decree, the entire Supreme Tao Palace began to seal the mountain. Rumble. From afar, one could see that the Yin-Yang Great Array seemed to have been completely revived. Endless Yin and Yang Qi lingered around it, forming a vast Yin-Yang Taiji diagram in the sky above the Taishang Palace, enveloping the entire Taishang Palace. Did something happen in the Supreme Tao Palace? Why is the Supreme Emperor formation activated? Could it be that the Tao Lord Extermination died in the extraterritorial battlefield? Something big must have happened in the Supreme Tao Palace. Investigate. Investigate thoroughly. We must find out what happened in the Supreme Tao Palace at all costs. Powerful divine senses collided and intertwined around the Supreme Tao Palace. They were filled with uncertainty. The experts in the realm of the gods could faintly feel that something had happened in the Supreme Tao Palace. However, because the Supreme Tao Palace had sealed off the mountain, the news of Ling Zhao's return to the realm of the gods did not spread. This caused many people to speculate. On the other hand, the Chinese were completely crazy. The human king and earth king of the 3 kings of the Chinese had fallen. There were also the 4 sage king ancestors of the Chinese. A total of 6 sage king experts had fallen. This was a great loss to the Chinese and made them extremely angry. They began to send out experts to search for Heavenly King Ling, Yi Liangchen, and the White Dragon Horse. They also issued a bounty. The entire realm of the gods was shaken. King Ling had killed King Huaxiong 3 months ago. Now, King Hua Dijie and the 4 holy king elders had died in the hands of a strange young man. Many people were guessing who that strange young man was. How could he be so bold as to offend the Chinese? However, that unfamiliar young man claimed to be Heavenly King Bai's elder brother. Everyone was guessing, could it be King Panga's Panga Heavenly Dipper? However, to be able to kill 5 great peak stage holy kings in an instant, even a supreme holy king would not be able to do so. Although the Panga Heavenly Dipper was a monster, it should not have such battle prowess. At the very least, it should be a heavenly venerable elite. Many people were guessing, could it be that the War God Temple's Empyrean ancestor had made a move? After all, the Chinese had been arrogant and despotic for so many years, and countless disciples of the War God Hall had died at the hands of the Chinese. The 2 sides were like fire and water, and there was a great enmity between them. Many Chinese elites also appeared at the War God Hall, wanting to punish the War God Hall. However, The war god Hall's attitude was extremely tough, and they directly chased the Chinese elites out. However, the white dragon horse was able to teleport through the void. Although its battle prowess was not very strong, its speed was extremely fast. Even a heavenly venerable powerhouse might not be able to match it. Thus, no one knew where the white dragon horse had gone. The entire realm of the gods was in chaos. At this moment, Ling Xiao, Jin Sei, and Changxing finally had a few days of peace in the Taishang Palace. The joy of reuniting after a long time made Ling Xiao temporarily forget everything. Every day, he hugged Changxing and told Jin Sei what he had experienced over the years without holding back. Even Jin Sei was extremely moved. She did not expect Ling Xiao to have experienced so many things in the past 200 years. Not only did he become the lord of the heavenly prison realm, but he also promoted the integration of the 5 holy clans in the demon realm. He even became the lord of all demons, refined the primitive heart, and controlled the primitive secret realm. Any one of these identities of Ling Xiao's would cause the entire realm of the gods to tremble. Unknowingly, the chosen one of the past had grown to such a level. Brother Ling Xiao, you must have suffered a lot over the years. But now that you're back, I'm really happy. But once the news of your return spreads, I'm afraid the immortal sacred grounds and monarch clans will not let this matter rest. Jin Sei sighed softly, and a trace of worry appeared in her eyes. Over the years, as Jin Sei's cultivation increased, she gradually came into contact with some hidden matters, and understood the power and terror of the immortal sacred grounds. Although the realm of the gods did not have a great emperor, the 12 immortal sacred grounds and the monarch clans were able to become the rulers of billions of people, and their legacies had been passed down for countless years. They won't let this matter rest? I'm afraid it won't be their turn. 200 years ago, they forced me into a corner. It won't be long before this debt is settled, and I will personally pay them a visit. Ling Xiao smiled faintly, and a faint light flickered in his eyes. Soon, the time of reckoning will come soon. But now that Ling Xiao had suddenly become a father, and had such an adorable daughter like Changxing, he had temporarily put everything aside, so he did not care about the immortal sacred grounds and monarch clans. Brother Ling Xiao, no matter what decision you make, I'll support you. Jin Sei smiled gently, her eyes filled with gentleness. Seeing Ling Xiao's confident look, Jin Sei's worries were slowly put to rest. Furthermore, she had a certain understanding of Ling Xiao's current strength. The Ling Xiao of today was no longer the chosen one that they had schemed against and besieged 200 years ago. Jin Sei could imagine, once the news of Ling Xiao's return to the realm of the gods was spread, it would cause the heavens to fall and the earth to rend. Jin Sei, Changxing's body seems to be a little special. I saw that you left a powerful seal in her body, what's going on? Ling Xiao asked curiously. He had previously sensed that there was an incomparably powerful seal in Changxing's body, and it had Jin Sei's aura. It should have been left behind by Jin Sei, but that seal was rather beneficial to Changxing, so Ling Xiao did not dare to recklessly examine it. That was why he had come to ask Jin Sei, the seal in Changxing's body. Brother Ling Xiao, I was just about to talk to you about this. If my guess is correct, Changxing should be the legendary innate chaotic body. Jin Sei looked at Ling Xiao seriously, and slowly said. Innate chaotic body. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed, revealing a trace of incomparable shock. Third Sect Master. Chapter 2779. Ling Xiao didn't expect Jin Sei to say that Changxing had the legendary innate chaotic body. The innate chaotic body was the #1 chaotic body in the world. It was extremely powerful and contained the origin of the Tao of Chaos. It possessed unparalleled talent and luck. As long as it didn't die, it could be cultivated to an extremely high level. The immemorial emperor, one of the 9 emperors of the human race, had the legendary innate chaotic body. However, Ling Xiao knew that the Wuji saint of the chaotic heaven sect also had the sacred chaotic body. However, the sacred chaotic body wasn't the innate chaotic body. The Wuji saint had the bloodline of the immemorial emperor and inherited a trace of the innate chaotic body. That was why he had the sacred chaotic body. It could only be considered an acquired chaotic body. The real innate chaotic body was an innate understanding of the Tao of chaos. It was the most heaven-defying existence in the world. However, Ling Xiao found it hard to believe that he actually had an extremely ordinary physique. Although he had condensed the primordial immortal body, it was built on the foundation that he had fused with two great chaos treasures and obtained the 12 Sky Skills secret technique. It could be said that the primordial immortal body was an acquired one. On the other hand, Jin Se had the supreme Taoist body. The combination of the primordial immortal body and the supreme Taoist body could give birth to the innate chaotic body. That's right. Changsheng has the innate chaotic body. Master also knows about this. When Changsheng was born, there was a phenomenon in the world. The Daos trembled and the 3,000 Daos congratulated her. The entire God realm was filled with chaotic phenomena. If Master hadn't sealed Changsheng's phenomenon with the Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram, the entire God realm and even the other worlds would have known about the birth of the innate chaotic body. The innate chaotic body is too special. Before Changsheng fully grasps her power, she's like the brightest sun. Wherever she goes, she'll attract everyone's attention. That's why Master and I placed a seal in Changsheng's body to temporarily seal the power of her innate chaotic body. When she becomes a saint, the seal will be unsealed. Then, she'll be able to fully grasp the power of the innate chaotic body. However, before that, Changsheng can't reveal her innate chaotic body. Otherwise, there will be a disaster. Jin Se said slowly with a solemn expression. I see. But now that you've sealed Changsheng's innate chaotic body, I'm afraid it'll be difficult for her to grow up. Unless you can break the seal, Changsheng will remain a child forever. Ling Xiao nodded. He finally knew the origin of the seal within longevity's body. Innate chaotic body. My goodness, I didn't think that my daughter would have such heaven-defying talent. The reason why the innate chaotic body was known as the #1 physique in all the heavens was because it contained the power of the origin of chaos. It was born with the ability to fuse with the 3,000 great Daos. As long as Changsheng embarked on the path of cultivation, he would not have any bottlenecks to break through. There would not even be any major obstacles before he reached the Imperial Emperor realm. If others knew about such a heaven-defying physique, even sovereign emperors would be tempted. If he could refine the innate chaotic body into an avatar, he might be able to walk a different path. This was a temptation that even imperial emperors could not resist. It's all right. Changsheng had the innate chaotic body. If she wanted to cultivate, it would not take long for her to break through to the saint stage. However, in the past few years, I've been imprisoned and Master has gone to the extraterritorial battlefield. Changsheng has not been able to cultivate. I'm afraid I'll have to rely on you, Father, to build the foundation for Changsheng. Jin Se said with a smile, her face full of confidence. Although she was shocked by the fact that Changsheng had the innate chaotic body, she was also extremely excited. With such a heaven-defying physique, Changsheng might be able to attain the Tao and become an emperor in the future, just like the Hunyuan emperor. Build the foundation for Changsheng. Of course, I'll have to do it myself. Ling Xiao said with a smile. His eyes were filled with anticipation. He was also looking forward to seeing how strong Changsheng would be if she could completely control the power of the innate chaotic body. Father, will Changsheng become very powerful in the future? Changsheng had been playing in Ling Xiao's arms. At this moment, she could not help but raise her head. She blinked her big clear eyes and asked Ling Xiao. Of course. Changsheng will be very powerful after she cultivates, very powerful. By then, all the bad guys will be no match for Changsheng. Ling Xiao said with a smile. Really? Then Changsheng needs to cultivate too. Father, can you teach Changsheng how to cultivate? Changsheng blinked her big eyes, her eyes filled with excitement and anticipation. Okay. Father will teach Changsheng how to cultivate. In the future, Changsheng will be the most powerful person in the world. When the time comes, Changsheng will help Father beat the bad guys, okay? Ling Xiao said with a smile. Okay. I'll help father beat all the bad guys away so that they can't bully father and mother. Changsheng nodded with a serious expression on his face. Changsheng is such a good girl. Ling Xiao patted Changsheng's little head and said. He had already decided that he would personally build the supreme foundation for Changsheng. Changsheng had the innate chaotic body. Although the power of the innate chaotic body was sealed now, once she started cultivating, her cultivation would naturally skyrocket with her talent. Ling Xiao could sense that although Changsheng did not possess any cultivation base at the moment, his body contained an incomparably vast amount of essence power. Moreover, Changsheng's flesh was as smooth as jade. There was not the slightest bit of impurity on his body. His flesh was crystal clear and his bones contained imprints. Even his soul was clear and flawless. Even if Changsheng's innate chaotic body was sealed, such a heaven-defying physique would be treated like a treasure if it was discovered. They would want to recruit her. Jin say, then I'll build the foundation for Changsheng now. Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he made up his mind. Now that the great calamity of the era was approaching, all sorts of monsters would appear. Although Ling Xiao was powerful, it would be difficult for him to ensure Jin Sei and Changsheng's safety. No matter what, he had to give Changsheng some ability to protect herself. Ling Xiao waved his sleeve and immediately swept Changsheng and Jin Sei up. They turned into a stream of light and flew into the prison steel. The space within the prison steel was sealed. Even if there were any fluctuations within, the outside world would not notice. Ling Xiao was going to build the foundation for Changsheng in the prison steel. Whoosh! Light flashed in Ling Xiao's palm, and immediately, many treasures appeared. There were all sorts of powerful origin sacred herbs, innate spiritual roots, enlightenment tea leaves, and the myriad demons fruit that Ling Xiao had obtained from the myriad demons ancient tree. In the end, Ling Xiao even took out some of the supreme materials he had collected. Ling Xiao did not dare to be careless in building the foundation for Changsheng. He took out the most precious treasures and prepared to build the supreme foundation for Changsheng in order to prepare for the integration of the innate chaotic body. P.S. Second update. My leader arranged for me to go on a business trip today. Muyu drove the whole night and couldn't deliver the promised 5 updates. Please forgive me. However, Muyu remembers that I owe 4 updates. I'll make up for it in the next 2 days. End of chapter. Chapter 2780. Swoosh. Ling Xiao's palm shone brightly. In an instant, the good fortune jade disc flew out of his body and floated in the air. It was like a lotus flower that slowly bloomed. The fluctuations of the 3,000 great paths flowed around it. It was very mysterious. Changsheng, Daddy is going to build your foundation for you. Are you afraid? Ling Xiao hugged Changsheng and said with a smile. Daddy, I'm not afraid. I want to cultivate. I want to protect Daddy and Mommy. Changsheng looked curiously at the creation jade disc in the void and shook his head. All right. Let's start now. Ling Xiao stroked Longevity's little head, then gently placed Longevity on the fortune jade disc. Rumble. The jade plate of fortune contained 3,000 grand Tao laws. It was incomparably mysterious. When Longevity sat cross-legged on the jade plate of fortune, chaos energy suddenly seeped out from his body. In an instant, it produced an extremely peculiar reaction with the jade plate of fortune. Divine chains of order shot up into the sky from the jade disc of good fortune. All 3,000 divine chains of order were enveloped by the chaotic qi. They vaguely resonated with the longevity qi in a strange way. It seemed like something in Changsheng's body had broken. The seal in Changsheng's body has broken. Jin Sei said in shock. The seal in Changsheng's body was set up by Jin Sei and Extermination Tao Lord together with the extreme power of Yin-Yang Tai Chi diagram. It was impossible for ordinary people to break the seal. However, just by sitting on the good fortune jade disc, the seal within Longevity's body was broken. Radiant light shone from Longevity's body. Thousands of streaks of auspicious radiance shone from him. It was as though there was a small sun inside him. Streams of primordial energy seeped out from his body, giving longevity a somewhat different appearance. Is this the innate chaotic body? The creation jade disc contains the 3,000 great ways. It comes from the same source as Changsheng. The chaos contains everything. This creation jade disc is the ultimate treasure for Changsheng to build his foundation. Ling Xiao's eyes revealed a trace of understanding as he spoke slowly. Ling Xiao could see that as Changsheng sat on the fortune jade disc, the 3,000 great path nomological laws contained within the fortune jade disc began to slowly fuse into Changsheng's body as he activated the fortune jade disc. The innate chaotic body could accommodate all things in the world. Although Changsheng still couldn't understand the 3,000 great Tao laws in the fortune jade disc, they were all stored in Changsheng's body and became his foundation. In time, when Changsheng stepped into the Saint Realm, he would definitely be able to erupt with unparalleled power. Boom! Ling Xiao no longer hesitated. He activated the jade plate of good fortune to cleanse Changsheng's body with the 3,000 great ways precepts. At the same time, he activated the sky-devouring fire to refine those worldly treasures. At Ling Xiao's current level of cultivation, he understood the origin of heaven and earth and the principles of all living things. By fusing all those incomparably precious natural treasures, he would be able to refine a supreme golden core. The treasures that Ling Xiao had accumulated over the years were continuously taken out and refined by the sky-devouring fire. They formed the most original energy and gradually condensed into an elixir. The sky-devouring fire was turbulent and contained the power of the flame origin. At the same time, thunder rumbled in the surroundings and lightning continuously struck on the elixir. Ling Xiao used the sky-devouring fire to refine the elixir and a mysterious vision of heaven and earth appeared in the surroundings. The sky-devouring fire even intertwined in the void and formed an illusory elixir furnace. It continuously absorbed countless natural treasures and refined them into a supreme golden core that was like a small sun. In the end, Ling Xiao even added a few supreme treasures. Although extreme-grade treasures were supreme treasures that could be used to forge extreme-grade emperor weapons, they could also be used to concoct pills. However, they were too precious. Ordinary people would be extremely lucky if they could get their hands on an extreme-grade treasure, let alone concoct pills. However, Ling Xiao didn't have the concept of saving. He wanted to build a supreme foundation for Changsheng. Kacha. In the end, when the golden core was refined, the surrounding winds and clouds surged and lightning blazed. The 3,000 great Daos shook violently and intertwined into lines as if they were going to descend from the sky and destroy the golden core completely. Disperse! Ling Xiao shouted softly. It was as if his words were the law and contained supreme heavenly might. In an instant, all the visions in the surroundings disappeared. The golden core was like a stream of light and instantly merged into Changsheng's body. Boom! Blazing divine light rose from longevity's body as chaotic air gushed out. 3,000 divine chains of order burst out from the jade disc of good fortune and wrapped around longevity in an instant like a huge cocoon. All the visions in the surroundings gradually disappeared. In the void, only the huge cocoon was left. It wrapped around Changsheng and was undergoing the final transformation. Thump! 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 Although Ling Xiao and Jin Se couldn't see Changsheng, they could hear Changsheng's heartbeat. Every heartbeat caused the surrounding heavens and earth to tremble violently. The fluctuations were ancient and mysterious, as if they were going to spread across the universe. If it weren't for the fact that they were in the prison of heavenly might, the fluctuations would have spread across the entire divine world and even spread across the universe. Countless experts would have sensed it. The birth of the innate chaotic body was a heaven-defying constitution that would cause the heavens and earth to resonate with the great Daos. Ling Xiao and Jin Se could feel Changsheng's aura growing stronger and stronger. Brother Ling Xiao, the golden core that you refined just now contains the power of origin. I'm afraid it's already considered a great emperor pill, right? With the support of the 3,000 great Daos from the creation jade disc, I wonder what Changsheng will become. Jin Se said softly with a hint of anticipation in her eyes. It does contain the power of the great Daos, but it's not a great emperor pill. It should be a quasi-emperor pill. With the support of the 3,000 great Daos from the creation jade disc, Changsheng's talent is already heaven-defying to the extreme. Even those so-called princes are far inferior to Changsheng. My daughter is definitely not weaker than anyone. Ling Xiao said with a smile, his eyes filled with confidence. Brother Ling Xiao, do you think Changsheng will break through to the sage realm directly? A strange look appeared in Jin Sei's eyes. She suddenly felt that the great Daos were intertwined around Changsheng's body. There was an extremely pure aura of the great Daos that filled the air. The 3,000 great Daos intertwined and formed a Dao fruit in Changsheng's body. The Dao fruit was the symbol of a sage. A 4-year-old sage. Jin Sei couldn't believe it and exclaimed in her heart. It's possible. But it's still a little short. Light flashed across Ling Xiao's eyes and he instantly jabbed a finger forward. Next, a mysterious scripture with endless streams of chaotic energy swirling around it fused with longevity's sea of wisdom. Next, it began revealing various mysteries of the world. Primal Chaos Secret Technique. Peak. Chapter 2781. The Primal Chaos Secret Technique was ranked first among the 12 sky skills. It contained the power of the Primal Chaos origin and was the most compatible with Changsheng. Just like that, Ling Xiao passed it on to Changsheng. Originally, Ling Xiao had planned to pass on the Primal Chaos Secret Technique to Changsheng after she grew up and broke through to the Sage Realm. However, after seeing Changsheng's current state, Ling Xiao changed his mind. Perhaps Changsheng could really break through to the Sage Realm. The Primal Chaos body was far beyond Ling Xiao's imagination. Rumble. As the Primal Chaos Secret Technique merged with Changsheng's body, the Primal Chaos light surged and lightning flashed. The chaotic qi seemed to flow in Changsheng's body in a strange way. The gigantic cocoon of chaos abruptly shattered. Like a torrent of chaos, it fused into longevity's body. A brilliant sun seemed to appear above Changsheng's head. It was faintly intertwined with 3,000 great Dao laws. It was dazzling and gorgeous, flowing with the purest saint path aura. Changsheng had really broken through to the Sage Realm. Father, I feel like I've become very powerful. Changsheng slowly opened his eyes and looked at Chen Feng curiously. Then, he said in a pleasantly surprised tone. She sat cross-legged on the lotus-like jade plate of fortune. Her body was surrounded by primal chaos qi. Her skin was as white as jade and looked crystal clear. Although her face looked very young, it was flawless. It was as if she had been carefully carved by the Creator. There was no flaw. Changsheng blinked her big, watery eyes. Her long eyelashes fluttered, and her gaze was pure without a trace of impurity. It made people want to hug her and cherish her. Changsheng clenched her small, delicate hands. Lightning bloomed from her hands, and the void cracked slightly. This was a sign that her power had reached the peak. However, Changsheng was still unable to control her power. Changsheng, come and let mother have a look. Jin Sei stretched out her arm, her eyes filled with joy. Changsheng had completed the foundation establishment. What she did not expect was that Changsheng had directly broken through to the Saint Realm. This meant that there was no need for a seal. As long as Changsheng did not use the power of the innate chaos, ordinary people would not know that she had the legendary innate chaos body. Whoosh! Like a stream of light, longevity instantly flew into Jin Sei's bosom. Mother, can Changsheng protect you in the future? Changsheng was very obedient and said seriously to Jin Sei, good. In the future, Changsheng will protect mother. Jin Sei's eyes turned into crescent moons as she said dotingly. Mother, I'm so sleepy. In the end, she fell into a deep sleep in Jin Sei's arms. Ha! Ha! A pure smile appeared at the corner of her mouth. She looked obedient and cute, like a porcelain doll. Her body has fused with a lot of source energy, which will make her stronger and stronger. She is digesting the source energy in her body. Ling Xiao explained and patted Changsheng's head. Looking at the way Jean Sei was carrying longevity, Jean Sei's entire body seemed to exude a motherly radiance. It gave Ling Xiao an unprecedented sense of tranquility. Big brother Ling Xiao, if you have time, go and bring little sister Shui Wei back. Jean Sei's gaze landed on Ling Xiao as she smiled. Shui Wei. Hearing this name, Ling Xiao's heart couldn't help but tremble. The image of a gentle and elegant lady in white appeared in his mind. She was the one who followed behind him and always called him young master. Jean Sei, Ling Xiao laughed bitterly. He wanted to say something but was interrupted by Jean Sei. Big brother Ling Xiao, I think you know Shui Wei's feelings for you better than I do. She followed you from the war god's world to the god's world. She gave up everything for you and even risked her life several times. You should give her an explanation. At our current cultivation level, the number of people who are important to us is decreasing. Every one of them is the most precious gift in our lives. Little sister Shui Wei's love for you is no less than mine. I sincerely hope that big brother Ling Xiao can bring her home. Jean Sei said sincerely. Jean Sei, I understand what you mean. Is Shui Wei doing well in the Samsara temple? In a few days, I will make a trip to the Samsara temple and bring Shui Wei back. Ling Xiao nodded and said. Ling Xiao had a good impression of the Samsara temple. Back then, the master of the Samsara temple had helped Ling Xiao in the Ling Xiao mountain range. Although Ling Xiao knew that it was because of Shui Wei's pleas, Ling Xiao was still grateful to the Samsara temple. If he went to the Samsara temple this time, he would have to thank the master of Samsara properly. Jean Sei carried the sleeping longevity and left the majestic prison monument with Ling Xiao. Ling Xiao, something has happened. Ling Xiao saw the anxious white dragon horse as soon as they left the Samsara temple. What happened? Ling Xiao's eyes flashed as he said slowly. The Samsara temple has announced to the world that the sacred son of Samsara, Qin Miesheng, will marry the sacred daughter of Samsara, Shui Wei in 3 days' time. White Dragon Horse looked at Ling Xiao and said. What? Ling Xiao's entire body shook, and his face instantly turned ashen. Shui Wei. Ling Xiao had always told himself that he only saw Shui Wei as a younger sister. Even when Jean Sei mentioned Shui Wei, he would hesitate. But at this moment, he suddenly panicked. It was as if the most precious thing in his life was about to be taken away from him. Shui Wei's face appeared in Ling Xiao's mind. Shui Wei had been hurt for him several times without asking for anything in return. She only hoped that her young master could find Jean Sei and live happily ever after. Ling Xiao felt a piercing pain in his heart. If that's the case, should I go to the Samsara temple to congratulate Shui Wei in 3 days' time? Ling Xiao muttered to himself. His face was pale and he forced a smile. Ling Xiao, don't be silly. You're a bastard, a bastard. You're even more of a bastard than me. Shui Wei treats you so well. Are you willing to let her marry Qin Miesheng? I've heard that Shui Wei agreed to marry Qin Miesheng because she begged the master of the Samsara temple to save you 200 years ago. However, Shui Wei had been in seclusion in the forbidden land of Samsara for the past 200 years. She had just come out of seclusion when Qin Miesheng forced her to fulfill her promise. That's why the Samsara temple announced that Qin Miesheng would marry Shui Wei in 3 days' time. If you're still thinking of running away, I'll look down on you. If you're a man, go get Shui Wei back and kill that bastard Qin Miesheng. What a bastard! How dare he covet Shui Wei? White Dragon Horse said fiercely. His eyes were red. Shui Wei was forced. Ling Xiao's body trembled. In an instant, a terrifying murderous aura rose around him, causing the surrounding void to rumble. His eyes revealed a monstrous murderous intent. Chapter 2782. In the Saintess Palace of the Samsara Temple. Junior Sister Shui Wei, this is the 9-colored feather robe that several celestial venerate ancestors had crafted together. Countless heavenly treasures were used to craft it and it's comparable to a quasi-emperor weapon. It's your wedding dress 3 days from now. I believe that junior sister Xue Wei will be unparalleled in her generation after putting on the 9-colored feather robe. A young man in a white robe said to Xue Wei with a smile. He was tall and slender, and his face was as clear as jade. He looked like a gentle young master. He held a 9-colored feather robe in his hand. It unfolded in the void and emitted a 9-colored divine light. It was surrounded by auspicious vapors and glittered brilliantly. There seemed to be the cries of dragons and phoenixes ringing out from it. It was crisp and peaceful. A young girl in a white robe sat in front of him. She was shrouded in a misty light and her face could not be seen clearly. However, her eyes were cold and bright, like the brightest stars in the night sky. "Put it down." A cold voice rang out. It contained a coldness that kept people at arm's length. The young girl in a white robe was Xue Wei. She looked at the young man in a white robe. There was an indescribable disgust in her eyes, but she did not show it. Qin Miesheng, the son of the Samsara Temple Master, was also the Samsara Temple Holy Son. 200 years ago, Xue Wei had to agree to marry Qin Miesheng in order to ask the Temple Master to help her during the battle at the Lingshao mountain range. After the battle at the Lingshao mountain range, Xue Wei entered the forbidden grounds of the Samsara Temple to reincarnate and comprehend the reincarnation Great Way. She had been in seclusion for 200 years. Now, Xue Wei had come out of seclusion. Under the request of the Temple Master and Qin Miesheng, Xue Wei had to fulfill her promise. "Young master, I believe that you're not dead. It's just that Xue Wei can't continue to follow in your footsteps. I hope that you and Sister Jean Sei can live a peaceful and happy life." The figure of the young man in a white robe seemed to appear in Xue Wei's mind. The young man who stood on the longevity mountain and smiled at her became her life's goal. However, in the end, it all turned into a deep sigh in her heart. Perhaps, she would never be able to see young master again. Junior sister Xue Wei, in 3 days, many immortal sacred grounds and monarch tribes will come to congratulate you. Father hopes that you will be happy. After all, this is a joyous occasion for the Samsara Temple. Once we become cultivation partners, Father will abdicate and I will become the new master of the Samsara Temple. By then, you will be the wife of the Temple Master. Qin Miesheng said with a smile. Qin Miesheng's eyes were burning with passion. Although Xue Wei had covered her face, Qin Miesheng knew that there was a peerless beauty hidden under the mist. The person that he yearned for day and night was finally going to fall into her hands. "Tell the palace master not to worry, I know what to do. However, senior brother Qin, please remember that although I am married to you, we are only Tao companions in name. I am determined to dedicate my life to the great Tao. I will not fall in love with anyone," Xue Wei said flatly. Looking at Xue Wei's indifferent eyes, Qin Miesheng was inexplicably furious. His handsome face darkened and he said, "Are you still thinking about that trash Ling Xiao?" He knew clearly why Xue Wei had agreed to marry him in the first place. At that time, he was mad with jealousy. He had tried many times to win Xue Wei's favor, but Xue Wei had always been cold and indifferent to him. Only Ling Xiao, that damned heaven's chosen one, was able to affect Xue Wei's heartbeat. "Qin Miesheng, I won't allow you to talk about young master like that. You naturally know my intentions. You knew it from the moment you forced me to marry you." Xue Wei's gaze instantly turned cold. She slowly stood up, and a mysterious qi of samsara emanated from her body. Boom! The Saintess Palace seemed to tremble slightly at this moment. Xue Wei's aura was so terrifying that it seemed to have transformed into a vast and boundless world. Qin Miesheng's face changed involuntarily. From Xue Wei's body, he actually felt an unimaginable threat. How is this possible? I'm already a peak holy king. How can this bitch be so powerful? Could it be that she has already broken through to the Supreme Saint King realm? Qin Miesheng roared in his heart. His eyes were filled with disbelief. He had thought that even if Xue Wei's cultivation had increased greatly after coming out of the forbidden grounds, she would at most be an ordinary holy king. However, it seemed that he was wrong. Shui Wei's cultivation was far beyond his imagination. No way. I must ask my father to keep an eye on this bitch. I can't let her escape. The reincarnation saint physique is indeed terrifying. Perhaps she has already comprehended the reincarnation origin. As long as she falls into my hands and I pluck her reincarnation origin, I might be able to break through to the Empyrean realm in one fell swoop. I might even reach the Empyrean realm. Qin Miesheng was angry and happy at the same time. His heart was burning with passion. He had to marry Shui Wei not only because of his obsession and desire to possess her, but also because of Shui Wei's reincarnation sacred being. Once the reincarnation sacred being reached the great achievement and comprehended the reincarnation origin, it would be the best furnace. If Qin Miesheng obtained Shui Wei's reincarnation origin, his cultivation would immediately soar and save him thousands of years of cultivation. This was the supreme fortune that his father, the Samsara Temple Master, had planned for him. Humph. Shui Wei, you'll be married to me in 3 days. I hope you'll behave yourself and don't let your imagination run wild. Otherwise, don't blame me for being rude. Qin Miesheng stared at Shui Wei and sneered. He tore off his disguise and left the 9-colored feather coat behind. Although Shui Wei's aura was extremely terrifying, Qin Miesheng was not worried at all. Shui Wei would not be able to cause any trouble in the Samsara Temple. When the time came, he would teach this bitch a lesson. Qin Miesheng felt his lower abdomen burning at the thought that Shui Wei would be able to enjoy him in 3 days. Bitch, I'll let you be arrogant for a few more days. I'll teach you a lesson in 3 days. Qin Miesheng sneered in his heart. Seeing Qin Miesheng leave the Saintess Palace, Shui Wei withdrew her aura and sat down slowly. Her eyes were full of exhaustion and blankness, which made people feel sorry for her. Young master, I'll be married in 3 days. It would be great if I could see you again. Shui Wei muttered to herself softly and finally let out a long sigh. Saintess, why do you have to do this? The gray-haired old woman beside Shui Wei hadn't said anything all this time. At this moment, when she saw Shui Wei's appearance, a trace of pity appeared in her eyes, and she couldn't help but sigh softly. Peak. Chapter 2783. Granny, this is what I promised the temple master. Moreover, the sect has treated me well, so I'm repaying the sect. In this way, the young master won't be in a difficult position. Shui Wei said with a faint smile. Her smile made one's heart ache. The sect has treated you well, but you've done a lot for the sect over the years. Moreover, the temple master is taking advantage of you. Qin Miesheng doesn't look like a good person. He's full of evil tricks. Ling Xiao is also a bastard. You've done so much for him, but he still hasn't come to see you. Shui Wei, I think you'd better forget about Ling Xiao. The old lady looked at Shui Wei and said angrily. The old lady was Shui Wei's guardian and the closest person to Shui Wei in the Samsara Temple. She treated Shui Wei like her own granddaughter and watched Shui Wei grow to where she was today. While she was gratified, she also felt sorry for Shui Wei. This girl has too much on her shoulders. She's always thinking for others, but she's never thought for herself. Granny, the young master must have been delayed by something. I believe he'll come back. Those who hurt him in the past will pay the price. Shui Wei said with a smile. You silly girl. Although Ling Xiao is the chosen one, he hasn't appeared for 200 years. So what if he comes back? There are so many geniuses and kings in the realm of the gods. It's no longer the era where he dominated his peers. The old lady sighed softly. Even if Ling Xiao returned to the realm of the gods, the old lady didn't believe that Ling Xiao would be able to cause any trouble, let alone there was no news of him. When the strength of the immortal sacred grounds was revealed, people would understand why the immortal sacred grounds could dominate the realm of the gods for hundreds of millions of years after the 9 emperors of the human race. At this moment, in the depths of the Samsara Temple, Qin Miesheng passed through layers of majestic palaces and finally entered a mysterious space through the teleportation formation. Rumble. This space appeared to be incomparably huge. It was surrounded by an endless amount of primal chaos chi. The primal chaos chi actually formed mysterious bubbles. Countless bubbles gathered together, as if there was an endless world within. A figure sat cross-legged amidst the chaos chi. His aura was incomparably terrifying and unfathomable. Each time he puffed out the heaven and earth, those bubble worlds would shatter before reforming once more. That figure seemed to be able to split the heavens and earth apart. He was like the emperor of this endless primal chaos space, causing people to involuntarily want to kneel down and worship him. Father, the 9-colored feather coat has been delivered. But that bitch Xue Wei seems to still be thinking about Ling Xiao. Qin Miesheng's eyes revealed a hint of awe as he bowed to the figure and said, "Thank you for your help." No one knew better than him just how terrifying this figure was. His father, the master of the Samsara temple, was probably the most powerful expert in the Samsara temple. It doesn't matter. Miesheng, you have to understand that everything in this world is an illusion. Only power is eternal. What you want is not her heart, but her reincarnation origin. That figure said faintly. I understand, but I just can't accept it. Moreover, Father, if we do this, what if the ancestor returns? Xue Wei is his only disciple. Qin Miesheng's eyes revealed a trace of worry. Ancestor? He's old, and he's too soft-hearted. The great tribulation of the era is coming, and the Samsara temple can't escape it. Now, all we need is a voice. Father, could it be that you've taken that step? Qin Miesheng's body suddenly trembled. He could not help but reveal a hint of surprise in his eyes. The wedding in 3 days' time will be held as scheduled. You have to show your poise. Otherwise, how can you lead the divine world in the future? How can you become the emperor of the younger generation and suppress the kings? This time, let me see what kind of monster dares to jump out. That figure said noncommittally. Yes. Qin Miesheng bowed. His eyes shone with an incomparably blazing and brilliant light. Since his father had taken that step, there were no more surprises. Even if the ancestor returns, he won't be able to stop him. This was the general trend of the Samsara temple. His father had suppressed everything. Perhaps it was just like what his father had said. Everything was an illusion, and only power was eternal. When I get that bitch Xue Wei's reincarnation origin, who among the younger generation will be my match? Qin Miesheng was in high spirits, and he felt that everything was under his control. The news that Qin Miesheng, the holy son of the Samsara temple, was going to marry Xue Wei, the saintess, spread throughout the divine world. The Samsara temple was ranked at the top of the 12 immortal sanctuaries, and their strength was unfathomable. In addition, they had always been neutral, so they had good relations with many immortal sanctuaries, ancient tribes, and emperor tribes. When the news spread, all the immortal sanctuaries, ancient tribes, and emperor tribes sent messengers to the Samsara temple to congratulate them. In many people's eyes, Qin Miesheng and Xue Wei were a match made in heaven. A saintess marrying a saintess was a perfect match. However, many people who knew the inside story felt that it was a little strange. Xue Wei, the saintess of the Samsara, is deeply in love with the forbidden character, the chosen one. Why would she marry Qin Miesheng? You don't know, do you? I heard that 200 years ago, the Samsara temple broke their neutrality and helped Ling Xiao because Xue Wei begged the temple master to marry Qin Miesheng. That was why the Samsara temple master intervened. Does that mean Xue Wei was forced? Saintess Xue Wei is one of the 3 fairies in the divine world. She's on par with Jin Se fairy of the Taisheng Palace and Moon God fairy of the Destiny Temple. She's also the most gentle. She's my goddess. How could she let Qin Miesheng take advantage of her? Damn it. Tisk, Saintess Xue Wei is my goddess. Say that to the Samsara temple if you dare. Let's see if Qin Miesheng will beat you to death. I wonder if the Samsara temple will invite the War God temple to participate. It's said that Xue Wei used to be the forbidden character's maidservant. Now that Qin Miesheng is marrying Xue Wei, and it seems that Xue Wei didn't agree to it, isn't this a slap to the War God temple's face? The War God Temple. The War God Temple can't even protect themselves now. After so many years, they've lost many disciples and elders. They've been suppressed by the other immortal sanctuaries. I'm afraid they're about to fall out of the 12 immortal sanctuaries. Even if they're unhappy, they wouldn't dare to offend the Samsara Temple. That's right. It seems like Shui Wei. Sigh, what a pity. In the divine world, those who knew the inside story were talking about it. Although they knew that Shui Wei was forced to marry Qin Miesheng, they couldn't do anything about it. They could only talk about it casually. Some of them were even gloating over it. The news had also spread to the War God Temple. Even the Samsara Temple's emissary came to the War God Temple to deliver an invitation. This was the greatest provocation and humiliation. P.S. Second update. I've been busy for the past few days. I'm sorry, but I'll update 7 today to make up for the lack of updates from the past 2 days. Third sect leader.